Good morning, 6 o'clock on Tuesday, the 21st of July. These are your headlines this hour. A busy first full day in number 10 for Andy Burnham as he prepares to chair his first cabinet and set out a series of measures to ease the cost of living.
I will put the care of people at the heart of everything I do. I will give this my all.
The new PM picks his top team. John Healey becomes Chancellor, Ed Miliband the new Foreign Secretary, and Wes Streeting takes on defence. Also today, a 28-year-old man to appear in court charged with the murder of former Conservative Minister Anne Widdecombe. The families of migrants feared to have perished off the coast of Myanmar speak of their anguish as a people smuggler reveals their own sense of guilt. And at 6:40, we'll see what's making the headlines in today's papers with Catriona Stewart. Very good morning, Gareth Barlow with you. Andy Burnham is set to begin his first full day as Prime Minister. On the agenda, meeting with his new-look cabinet and potentially outlining his first cost of living measures. Follows a whirlwind 24 hours where the new PM revealed his new-look team while cutting out those loyal to Sir Keir Starmer. Former Chancellor Rachel Reeves and Starmer's deputy David Lammy were among those sent to the back benches, along with Darren Jones. John Healey became what some commentators considered a surprise choice for Chancellor. Ed Miliband promoted to Foreign Secretary. Shabana Mahmood remains Home Secretary, whilst Wes Streeting is taking charge of the Ministry of Defence. Our political editor, Beth Rigby, followed the day's developments.
Downing Street packed for a spectacle that has become all too familiar. The country waiting for its fifth Prime Minister in 4 years. Occasions once punctuated by elections rather than coups. Starmer's ousting in the end bloodless, but not without pain for his closest allies and aides lining the street for the final farewell. The outgoing PM forced out of office not by voters, but his party taking the stage for one last time.
Thank you.
After 2 years in Downing Street, Starmer clear he wants history to remember what he built, not the coup that brought him down.
My work is done. In 6.5 years, I took our party from a historic defeat in 2019, changed it so it was fit to face the country, and won a landslide general election victory in 2024. I am confident that Britain is now stronger and fairer than it was 2 years ago.
And even in defeat, Starmer determined to go with dignity.
So, as I now pass the baton to Andy Burnham, I wish him every success. He has my full support. I go with good grace, I go with a smile, and I go proud of everything that we have achieved. Thank you very much.
Embracing his wife, Victoria, who helped him make the final decision to stand down, applauded all the way to the gates, then on to Buckingham Palace to hand in his official resignation to the King. One premiership over and another just beginning. Burnham next to Buckingham Palace to ask permission to form a new Labour government. The new Prime Minister and his wife, Marie-France, arriving to rapturous crowds. The joy on Burnham's face plain to see.
Thank you.
This moment over a decade in the making, and he took it all in. A new Prime Minister and a new style, no lectern, no notes.
I know people at home are fed up with politics. I hear you, and I want to be honest with you. We have not been good enough, and we need to be better. We will be.
But like Starmer before him, Burnham promised a decade of change.
Later this year, I will bring forward a new plan for Britain, a 10-year plan, laying out a path from where we are now to where I believe we all want Britain to be, wherever we're coming from, whatever party we support.
And immediate support on the cost of living.
But I can do something to give people some breathing space now, some help with the cost of living. And I will set out some of those measures starting tomorrow, including how we pay for them.
This his pitch to the British people he now needs to win around.
I will give this my all, and I ask you all to pull with me. Let us make this the moment when Britain starts to believe again, the moment we bring back hope. Thank you very much, everybody.
Hugging his wife and his aides, but the longest embrace saved for his mother, Eileen, who has seen her son try and fail to become Labour leader twice to finally realise his dream and enter number 10. Before coming to Downing Street, Burnham took a dawn visit to a homelessness charity in Victoria, here to outline his first order as PM to end rough sleeping in the UK. Big ambitions, but this, a leader without a mandate. You said on Friday in your speech as you accepted the Labour leadership that you want to deliver the biggest change in our politics in 40 years. It sounds like a massive ambition for which you do need a mandate beyond the 25,000 people who voted for you in the Makerfield by-election. When are you going to call a general election?
Well, we're in a parliamentary democracy, and as we've seen through time, if somebody can command the majority of the MPs in the House of Commons, obviously they then have the legitimacy to lead things forward. And I will lead forward consistent with the manifesto, which also talked about change. And I now want to work on the platform.
But you are going to stick to the manifesto, just to be clear. You are not going to go beyond the manifesto of 2024.
I will stick to the manifesto. I will be bold and I will be true to what it says. But there are big changes that I can implement coming from that manifesto. It is about a new political model. Okay. It is about a new economic model for the country.
A new economic model and a new team to execute it. John Healey made Chancellor, having quit Keir Starmer's government after a battle over defence spending. Meanwhile, the duo who had been mooted for that role ended up in other big offices of state. Shabana Mahmood remaining as Home Secretary and Ed Miliband going to the Foreign Office. Burnham also bringing in his key allies. Campaign Chief Louise Haigh back in Cabinet as First Secretary of State in charge of the Cabinet Office. New MP and close ally Annalise Midgley elevated to Cabinet. This is a huge moment. We have a new Prime Minister, but without an election or even a leadership race, he is a man that some of you perhaps don't know. He's been ushered into the biggest job in the country by a Labour Party that believes it has a better chance of winning the next election with Burnham at the helm. And you can see from his first steps in his first speech that he wants to be a different kind of leader. But if he also wants to stick to Starmer's manifesto and mandate, can Burnham really be the change he says he is? He enters Downing Street promising to deliver the biggest change in how this country is governed in 40 years, with a 10-year plan for reform. But with voters out of patience and low on trust, he'll have to deliver much sooner than that. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.
Well, from Miliband to Mahmood, Rayner to Reynolds, Andy Burnham's new cabinet features a lot of familiar faces, but with a shake-up of who does what. Our deputy political editor, Sam Coates, has been looking at some of the top jobs.
Unpicking 40 years of decisions with a whole new top team. But what are the pitfalls of the people that he's chosen for the top team? Well, let's look at the most important one of all. Surprise as Chancellor John Healey. First elected as an MP in 1997, seen as a veteran, safe pair of hands, not as left-wing as Ed Miliband, as right-wing as Shabana Mahmood, the two names actually thought to be Chancellor, but The question for John Healey is when he was in the Ministry of Defence, he left a big black hole, didn't get a grip of the finances. Can he do a better job once he's in the Chancellor's chair? We will find out. And now this guy, he hoped to be the Chancellor, but isn't. Ed Miliband has ended up being Foreign Secretary. Some people thought it would be David, but the guy who helped Andy Burnham into number 10 has ended up in King Charles Street. He could end up in conflict with the US. He stopped the US using Diego Garcia, argued against them being able to bomb Iran from our bases. His stance on climate change and drilling could mean he also comes into conflict with the Trump administration, so he could be a contentious choice with the US. Shabana Mahmood, Home Secretary, she fought a strong campaign to stay where she is. The challenge for her, of course, she's pushing through tough immigration reforms, which will now remain in place. Lots of people in the Labour Party hoped she would go in order that they could scrap them. No longer will that be possible. Louise Haigh. Nobody did more to get Andy Burnham into number 10 than this person. She is First Secretary of State, which means that she's going to be at the engine room of this government, covering everything from the Cabinet Office. But can she keep a grip and keep the show on the road? She doesn't have a great deal of experience in government, so we'll see whether she is able to do that. Yvette Cooper, a surprise choice for Health Secretary. The former Foreign Secretary. It's a slight move downwards. She doesn't know the brief, but nevertheless is in a top role in a complicated job key to Labour's aspirations. Now, the final person staying in the job that they were in under Keir Starmer is Pat McFadden, but he is a reformer. Andy Burnham in the past hasn't wanted to take benefits away from claimants, so is he going to end up in sync with his boss? That's the challenge for him. Look at all of these names and the rest of the Cabinet. What unites some of the big ones? They wanted to get rid of Keir Starmer more than anybody else. But the question is, can they inspire loyalty in their boss now they're in the jobs themselves?
So breaking news to bring you now regarding some of the early announcements from Andy Burnham and number 10. Let's bring in our political correspondent, Lucy McDade, who can bring us more live from Westminster. And Lucy, just talk to us about an early announcement regarding the cost of living.
Yesterday, when he became Prime Minister out on Downing Street, was that he wanted to give families, people right across the country, breathing space. What he meant by that is relief from the growing cost of living. So what he has announced this morning, one of his first announcements, or his first announcement officially in office, is that from the 1st of October, he will want to cut VAT from electricity bills. Well, what does that mean? Well, the government is effectively saying £45 off the yearly Ofgem price cap. They will expect energy suppliers, they say, to pass that down to customers so that they have that money off their electricity bills. Now, just cast your mind back to under Keir Starmer's government not too long ago. They shifted some green levies, some green measures, if you like, onto general taxation. What that did was take £150 off the energy price cap. Well, Andy Burnham is saying, is his first official announcement in number 10, that he will take even more off that price cap in the hope that it will give some people off their electricity bills. He's also saying that some small businesses as well, they will be eligible for that. Now, it's expected to cost, I'm just reading this out now, expected to cost about £850 million, not an amount of money to be sniffed at. They are saying that that will be fully funded by scrapping the digital ID scheme that was, again, something under Keir Starmer's government. Now, that was announced. It was hugely controversial. I think a petition against digital ID was signed by about 3 million people. The idea of that programme was to crack down on illegal working. Well, actually, there was so much backlash to it that what the government ended up doing was saying it would no longer be mandatory, and instead digital ID would help give people better access, easier access to household bills, to childcare, for example. The way that Keir Starmer's government sold this to people was being that you would no longer need to search around, root around your drawers for an energy bill as proof of address. You would be able to instead present this digital ID. Well, Andy Burnham has come in and said he is scrapping that. It was costing too much money. He didn't think that it was focusing enough on his main priority. So instead, using that money on a key cost of living measure. He has given a quote this morning saying millions of households across the UK will benefit from this immediate action. It follows his commitment to the nation on the steps of Downing Street yesterday to give people some breathing space and help with the cost of living. Of course, one of the criticisms of Keir Starmer's government was that they promised change, they promised more money in people's pockets during the 2024 general election campaign, and that people right across the country simply weren't feeling it quickly enough. Andy Burnham wants to show people that when he's in office, he wants to show people those tangible changes. Of course, it is going to be challenging. This is one policy announcement. He says there will be more to come, but any more that do come will be announced in the budget in the usual way, and he is stressing they will be fully funded. Again, his political opponents are using every opportunity at the moment to accuse him of making unfunded policy announcements, of saying that he doesn't have a proper plan. Well, something that Andy Burnham has made sure to come into office with is this argument that he will stick to the fiscal rules. He understands the importance of that, and so every announcement will be fully funded. So that coming in this morning, Andy Burnham's first official policy announcement in office. Of course, over the weekend, before he went into Downing Street, we heard that he'd be scrapping that digital ID scheme. There are plenty more announcements, I think, to come. This is a man who's spoken about greater devolution, more powers to local areas. I think we can expect to hear more from that. He also said that his first instruction in number 10 would be to end rough sleeping at the earliest opportunity. So it's the first official policy announcement, but we have had a few more from Andy Burnham over the past few days.
Live in Westminster Forest, Lucy, thank you so much. So, digital ID out, VAT off, electricity bills from October off, and then the economy is most definitely on the agenda. It's the bedrock of any government, and our economics and data editor Ed Conway has been looking at the challenges facing the new Chancellor and former Defence Secretary John Healey, including, of course, increasing defence spending.
We've got a new Chancellor, not the one that people had expected. It is this man, John Healey, former Defence Secretary, gets in to number 11. And he's going to be faced with all sorts of difficult decisions coming up. Perhaps the thing that will overshadow his tenancy is something that pretty much every previous Chancellor hasn't been able to deal with, which is that we've got really weak productivity in the UK. And when I say productivity, that's just the amount of wealth that we're generating across the economy. It's perhaps this is the most important of all the charts, because what this is showing is productivity growth in different eras, cumulative productivity growth going back to the 1760s. The higher the bar, the more rich we're getting, basically, over time. And that is the story of the last few years, decade and a bit. And we have basically, over that period, had the weakest growth in the amount of money we're generating per person, per hour we work, in over 2 centuries. It's incredibly depressing, to be honest with you. And what's doubly depressing about this is the UK, you know, we're kind of similar to Europe, but actually if you compare us, and this line is basically showing you the same thing just over recent years, a little bit of growth. Compare us to the US and just look at the divergence. So America has just been getting wealthier and wealthier and wealthier, and the UK has been lagging far behind. And people are kind of scratching their chins, and, you know, this will doubtless be part of the briefing that John Healey gets about what it could be. Is it the fact that America invests lots more money? This is just showing you research and development investment, tech, non-tech. America invests a lot. The UK invests comparatively little. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's the fact that we have some of the highest energy prices in the world, which makes it really hard to reindustrialise. Maybe it's the fact that our broadband speeds are lower than most other countries around the world. Put it all together, and it's an enormous challenge. And on top of that challenge is the fact that, well, John Healey was the Defence Secretary. He was really focused on this line, which is defence spending, OK? And he left when there was... Remember that Defence Investment Plan? That was the moment, the trigger for him leaving. He thought the line wasn't going high enough, fast enough. But here's the issue. Here's the challenge he's faced with, OK? If that line's going to get up to where he kind of wanted it to head, 3.5% of GDP kind of in the next decade, you are talking about, just going to kind of show you a line here, you're talking about £24 billion of extra spending per year, which is equivalent to 3.5p on the basic rate of income tax. So that is something the Treasury looked at and they were horrified about. And now that he's actually in charge of the Treasury, is he going to be aiming for that? Is it going to mean higher taxes? What does it mean for the rest of government? There are going to be so many questions which he is going to have to handle in the coming months. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens.
Ed Conway for us there. Well, as we heard from Lisa McDade, Andy Burnham's first pledge as Prime Minister is to end rough sleeping. But that's been met with optimism and also cynicism by some without a roof over their heads in Burnham's old stomping ground of Manchester. Tom Parmenter has the story.
It's tough. So you're trying to basically just keep yourself alive, basically. I've realised over the last 6 weeks how hard it is.
Until recently, Ben had a home and a job. Now his whole life is in his backpack, and he's constantly looking for somewhere safe to sleep.
My bag is wrapped around my hand every night, just to make sure nobody can take it, because that bag's got basically my life in it. It's got my sleeping bag, change of clothes, bits of food.
This homeless charity kitchen helps keep him and many others going.
If there was one thing that you could say to the Prime Minister about sorting this out, what would it be?
Just do whatever you can to get, because a lot of these people that are on the streets could then be contributing to society.
Luke has had 10 years without a proper home.
I've pretty much lost my life because of not having a stable home.
Do you think any Prime Minister can solve rough sleeping?
No.
Helen has been there too, but told us Andy Burnham's approach could make a difference.
Anyone can be there. There's plenty of people that are just 1 or 2 steps away from that place, and it's looking at everybody as an individual and, restoring their dignity and helping them to live the life that they really want to live.
When he was elected mayor here back in 2017, Andy Burnham promised to end rough sleeping in Greater Manchester. He even donated 15% of his wages to help solve it. But after some progress, the numbers have crept back up.
You don't have to go far to find it. Near Piccadilly Station, we met Liam.
When you hear that he wants to try and improve it nationally, you're not buying into it?
No, because they just look after themselves. At the end of the day, we're out here, nothing. You know what I mean? There's how many hotels? Whole streets covered in hotels. Just not an immigrant, not come on a boat. I'm sorry to say it like that, but it is. I'm a UK citizen and I should have my own gaff.
The team at the homeless charity kitchen, which the PM has spent time at, believe it is a genuine commitment.
He will do whatever it takes to get people on local level what they need to strive and to thrive in their communities. We're always going to have people sleeping on the streets, but I think the length that people are there can be reduced. I think one night is the maximum anyone should ever be anywhere on the streets.
It's Andy Burnham's first big policy pledge, but the persistence of this problem here in his own backyard shows how hard it is to crack. Tom Parmenter, Sky News, Manchester.
In other news, a 28-year-old man has been charged with the murder of the former Conservative minister Anne Widdecombe. Joshua Kerry from Rotherham is due to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court today. Widdecombe's body found at her home in Haytor, Devon, nearly a fortnight ago. Just a reminder, plenty more on the whole political story on the Sky News website and app. The live page is running there as we speak, referencing that announcement to cut electricity bills from October. Still to come here this morning, the boss of America's largest bank gives Sky News his thoughts on the UK's new Prime Minister.
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, Here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Can you tell us who you're looking for?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal?
Not like you said it.
From the UK?
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's running out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcast.
It's like a football final with only one team on the pitch. This isn't just a call to vote, but a call to remember. The freedom fought for by the African National Congress. I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. A cyclone and 2 burst dams wiped out hundreds of generational homes. This was the second dam that the floodwaters hit before it tore into Durna. We are in the heart of Nairobi, and we're watching as protesters were heavily tear-gassed.
The sheer fearlessness and persistence of these guys is astonishing.
We help you understand the world with us. I remember going into the iconic Durman market in the heart of Sudan's capital for the first time since the war started. And this is what's left of it. Bullet holes through buildings, shelled balconies, bullet cases on the floor. I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories and the lives of millions of people. This is insane. This was a bustling residential area. So many friends who lived here. My most memorable interview was with a 15-year-old boy who'd survived being stranded on a migrant boat on its way from Senegal to the Canary Islands.
After 13 days, our food, water and fuel supply ran out.
I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky News.
6:26 on a Tuesday morning. The boss of America's largest bank says it's crucial that the UK gets its tax system right under Andy Burnham to both strengthen the economy and lift living standards across the country. Sky's Will Frost sat down with JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon and asked what he's hoping for from the new PM.
I want him to succeed. I want to see the UK thrive. I want London to succeed. I'd like London to be our home for a long period of time. It's been a wonderful home for us. But the UK, like everybody else, and like my own country, so don't yell at me and tell me I'm an angry American. If we don't do the right things, around immigration and taxation and regulation and healthcare and affordability. Affordability is not a Democrat or Republican issue, or taking care of our lower-paid citizens. You need a strong economy to do that. A strong economy will benefit all of your citizens. And just travel around the world and look what happens when bad policies muck up a country. So, the new chances are going to be good policies that actually cause growth. And good policies are free, and growth is the best antidote. Growth also helps the lowest paid people the most. Sometimes you look like you're doing a policy that's in benefit of a big company or wealthy people, but it's growth which will drive it for everybody. And it also creates the wealth of the nation that they can use to fix schools and roads and hospitals and all of that. So, I'm praying that they get policy right.
Plenty more from Wilf and Sophie in just over 30 minutes' time. Now then, time for the weather.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Temperatures will rise again over the next few days, reaching the high 20s in places, largely dry into the weekend. Britain mostly dry with long sunny spells this morning. The far north, rather dull and damp though. Ireland and Northern Ireland, meanwhile, seeing early cloud over central and western parts, more extensive, although southern and southeastern areas will keep some sunshine. Expect a few drizzly outbreaks in the north, mainly over the hills. Most places warmer than yesterday. Ireland and Northern Ireland seeing sunny spells developing widely later, but there'll be little change elsewhere.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Still to come here on Sky News, what made Kevin Keegan so special? We hear of his bond with the city of Newcastle after the former England forward died at the age of 75 yesterday.
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Can you tell us who you're looking for?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal?
Not like you said it.
From the UK.
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's running out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcast.
It's like a football final with only one team on the pitch. This isn't just a call to vote, but a call to remember. The freedom fought for by the African National Congress. I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. A cyclone and 2 burst dams wiped out hundreds of generational homes. This was the second dam that the floodwaters hit before it tore into Durna. We are in the heart of Nairobi, and we're watching as protesters were heavily tear gassed.
The sheer fearlessness and persistence of these guys is astonishing.
We help you understand the world with us. I remember going into the iconic Durman market in the heart of Sudan's capital for the first time since the war started. And this is what's left of it. Bullet holes through buildings, shelled balconies, bullet cases on the floor. I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories and the lives of millions of people. This is insane. This was a bustling residential area. So many friends who lived here. My most memorable interview was with a 15-year-old boy who'd survived being stranded on a migrant boat on its way from Senegal to the Canary Islands.
After 13 days, our food, water and fuel supply ran out.
I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky News.
You're watching Sky News. It's 6:31 on a Tuesday morning, and we've spoken to the heartbroken relatives of migrants feared dead after their boat capsized off Myanmar's coast last week. More than 500 people were on board the stricken journey to Malaysia. Our Asia correspondent Cordelia Lynch has this report.
There's nothing to wash away this family's pain. The tears, like the monsoon rains in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, keep falling. Lalu is shaking with grief, and her husband, Nur, looks haunted, hollowed. Their 15-year-old son, Jani Alam, is missing. He may be one of more than 500 people feared dead after 2 boats bound for Malaysia, packed with mostly Rohingya people, vanished off the coast of Myanmar. More and more people are risking it all at sea to escape poverty here in the world's largest refugee camp. But Lalu says her son was kidnapped. They paid smugglers a £1,600 ransom to send him home.
যে আর পুয়ারে লুগিতে হিন্দিলা করি আরো ঘটনা বাড়ি যার গই এন্দিলা করি বহুত ফোন এন্দিলা করি লজার গই বহুত আছে দালালক করে এ সুর করি লজার গই সামিলা লই যায় বড় তুলে দি ফেলের কেসু মরি যার গই এন্দিলা আরিয়া মামু
4 days ago, a smuggler sent this message to them. But he gave no proof of life.
There are more than 1 million people here in Cox's Bazar, with most displaced from their homeland around a decade ago. They have little access to education, employment, and support from aid agencies is rapidly declining too. It feels increasingly desperate, with more and more people risking it all to leave, and some being forced to.
Rafiq never thought he'd see his family again. He is one of just 9 survivors after a boat carrying 280 people capsized in April.
তারপর লাশিন দাসও মানে ওদের গাল লই আরা যারা জীবিত ছিলাম বাসে বাসি তারা গাম মাদও দিতে গাই তো লাশিন গুগু টেলিতাম তারপরও ডল্লাই তো কি কইছিম তালার হুকুম কেনে রাইতি বেন তো হারি গই অন্য হারি তিও রাইত থাইতে দে আই পুরা দিন আসুরাদা ছিলাম লাতিও গো 2 লিটারে পানির বোতল হইলাম মিনে হালি বিবালে আমি কি বাসে বাসি পুরা রাইতাছি
Do you still struggle with memories of what happened?
এরে দিন মানে দেখি গুম গেলে মনে স্বপ্ন মাঝে ইয়া করি মানে স্বপ্ন পরে তাই তাই কল্পনা করি নেডিলে ইয়ার পর লাতিয়া বই করে মানে ডরাই যাবো গুয়াতিকা
Teknaf is where Rafiq started his perilous journey. This boat, once packed with refugees, is one of few caught by the Coast Guard before it could go any further. Smugglers rarely talk, but this one has agreed to. Why? Guilt. He sent 20 people on the same boat as Rafiq. They all died.
Mani onrob bhabe gya mane dilor shorulor bituttun. Ogga mani kiyaye jala jottorani aye ar gomno lage balano lage. Hitarar mrittu ede hianollai boli etor hamkeni gori felailam endilla goriyere ar fuzzi mori jay toi boli aji ai can goitam arekjon can goribo can gori thaki parer iana ete attun manot.
You must have known the risks that you were placing these people in. These were women and children. Why did you keep doing it for so many years?
Mane itara tia jala mane ai tia jala guji itara jamara totmare ba faindona totmare jaibu huye ianollai boli gusilam ai gujilam ai ia to ar haz ai sari felai.
It is hard to believe that more than 500 people are currently missing at sea, and yet there's no search teams trying to find them. Seemingly invisible people, some tricked by traffickers, some tortured, so many simply in search of a better life. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Bangladesh.
More details on that story from Cordelia on the Sky News app. And for more of the day's top stories, check out Cheat Sheet, the podcast with Sophy and Wilfred, taking, of course, a closer look at the new cabinet.
So John Healey comes in as Chancellor. I actually think this is a smart choice because either Shabana Mahmood or Ed Miliband, who was what all the speculation was saying was between two people, would have alienated half the party, right, respectively. John Healey coming in is somebody who I don't think has many enemies in the Parliamentary Labour Party. The other reason it's smart is because I think he's almost putting down the challenge to John Healey. You're saying that you want to put more money into defence. OK, we'll find out where we need to cut then. You know, that's on you. So I think that is potentially, pretty smart.
You, of course, know the score. Scan the QR code on your screen right now to listen to today's Cheat Sheet podcast in full. Just a few moments to bring up speed on some of the day's other stories. The US has struck Iran for a 10th consecutive night, taking aim at military command centres. Washington says it's to prevent Iran from attacking ships in the Strait of Hormuz. It follows reports crews on board a vessel in the strait were forced to abandon their tanker when it was hit by a projectile. Controversial influencers Andrew and Tristan Tate have appeared in a US court as they fight to avoid extradition to the United Kingdom. The brothers are facing 38 charges, including rape and sex trafficking. Their lawyer called the case garbage and a stitch-up job while speaking outside court. And Spain's World Cup winning team have received a hero's welcome in Madrid after they beat Argentina for the title. Over 2 million people hit the streets to catch a glimpse of the trophy and the victorious squad. Let's stick with the day's sport.
Right, let's talk Wimbledon. And from a British perspective, the real headline has come from breakthrough star Arthur Ferry, who was handed a wild card to the tournament but progressed to the semi-final. As you can see, very pleased to say that Arthur joins me now. Arthur, really good to see you. Huge congratulations. What a journey you've been on the past fortnight. Can you even begin to start to sum it up?
Yeah, it's been an incredible fortnight. 6 matches and lots of firsts for me. It's going to take a while to all sink in and process it all, but yeah, it's been incredible.
Because you look at the stats, I mean, you became only the second wild card in men's singles history to make it to the semi-finals. You were ranked 114th in the world when you entered this tournament. Before it began, did you ever imagine that you could get through to the semi-finals?
Yeah, I've always had a lot of self-belief in my ability to play against the top players in the world, and yeah, it was just a matter of stringing wins together, and you know, in those slams, if you want to do well, you have to win a lot of matches. So yeah, that was the case. Past 2 weeks, I was able to back up wins with more good tennis and keep going. So yeah, I've always had the self-belief, and it was, yeah, in my eyes, just a matter of time.
And of course, beyond that second round in the singles, you were kind of Britain's only hope as we went through the tournament. Did you feel that level of expectation a lot more as the tournament progressed?
Not so much. I mean, I think there was a lot of attention anyway as a Brit, and yeah, the last Brit definitely contributed to that as well. But no, I was just trying to focus on myself and yeah, play for myself and just focus on one match at a time.
One of the matches that a lot of people are talking about is that Grigor Dimitrov match, because he's so well loved at Wimbledon as well. You then also beat...
Still to come here on Sky News, we'll discuss the stories making the headlines in the papers with our panellist Catriona Stewart.
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Can you tell us who you're looking for?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal?
Not like you said it.
From the UK.
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's rang out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcast.
It's like a football final with only one team on the pitch. This isn't just a call to vote, but a call to remember. The freedom fought for by the African National Congress.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa.
A cyclone and 2 burst dams wiped out hundreds of generational homes.
This was the second dam that the floodwaters hit before it tore into Derna. We are in the heart of Nairobi, and we're watching as protesters were heavily tear gassed.
The sheer fearlessness and persistence of these guys is astonishing.
We help you understand the world with us. I remember going into the iconic Omdurman market in the heart of Sudan's capital for the first time since the war started. And this is what's left of it. Bullet holes through buildings, shelled balconies, bullet cases on the floor. I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories and the lives of millions of people. This is insane. This was a bustling residential area. So many friends who lived here. My most memorable interview was with a 15-year-old boy who'd survived being stranded on a migrant boat on its way from Senegal to the Canary Islands.
After 13 days, our food, water and fuel supply ran out.
I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky News.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Temperatures will rise again over the next few days, reaching the high 20s in places, largely dry into the weekend. Britain mostly dry with long sunny spells this morning, although the far north will be rather dull and damp. Ireland and Northern Ireland seeing early cloud over central and western parts becoming more extensive. Southern and southeastern areas keeping some sunshine. Expect a few drizzly outbreaks in the north, mainly over the hills. Most places warmer than yesterday. Ireland and Northern Ireland, sunny spells developing widely later. Little change elsewhere.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Time to take a look at the headlines in today's papers in the newsroom. Please say we're joined by Katrina Stewart, education and politics correspondent for The Scotsman. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Appreciate you coming in. Good morning. Should we talk politics?
It's a time for it, it would seem.
We'll start on page 6 and 7 of The Guardian, and this is the runners and riders, who's in, who's out of the new look cabinet.
Yes.
And no, the odd surprise when it came to John Healey, but it felt more reshuffly than kind of brand new, Team Burnham.
It was definitely a sweep of Starmer loyalists. Andy Burnham is very much setting out his stall. I think there had been a bit of a worry that there would be a massive lurch to the left. There's certainly been a bit of a shift to the left, but I wouldn't say a lurch. But of course, John Healey is making a lot of headlines this morning as a so-called surprise pick for Chancellor. And of course, he's being framed as a surprise pick because it had been seen as a contest between Shabana Mahmood and Ed Miliband, but actually quite positive that this wasn't leaked, it wasn't briefed. And I think that says quite a lot about how Andy Burnham wants to run things, because he's been very vocal about being anti-leak and wanting to have control of his team and his cabinet and bring everybody in behind him. Angela Rayner is back. She is going to be housing, which of course I think will lead to a bit of needling about her own tax issues around housing from last year. So I think we can expect her to be pushed on that. But a really big brief, given that Andy Burnham's stated first out the traps policy is ending homelessness and rough sleeping. So she will have a lot to do with that. Yvette Cooper is back as Health Secretary. Again, a really big, important brief because of Andy Burnham's stated aims about unlocking the clogged adult care system. And from a Scottish perspective, we have Douglas Alexander staying on as Secretary of State for Scotland, which will be an interesting pick. He doesn't entirely unite the MSP group at Holyrood, although he does have quite a bit of support from the Scottish MP group at Westminster.
What I can't decide what the story is here, whether it's a story of tenacity and tenure for people like Andy Burnham and people like Ed Miliband of, trying to lead a party and then ultimately not succeeding at a general election, trying to become the leader of a party and ultimately not succeeding. And is it a story of tenacity and just sticking your guns and eventually 10, 15, 20 years later you'll eventually get there? Or is it a story of just don't bother trying because all that's happening is moving the chairs around, once you're in, you're kind of in, you might not always be at the top, but it will come back round again, and actually it's a story of tenure rather than maybe the best person at the job. It feels as though we've spoken about these people for decades now, and there are similar faces promising brand new things, and the electorate must surely go, well, are you going to be able to deliver on those promises?
And I wonder if it's less about tenure than it is about loyalty. And that is classic politics. We see Louise Haig in an extraordinarily powerful role now. It's a return to cabinet for her. Obviously, she had to stand down last year because of this fraud conviction over her mobile phone, and already we're seeing headlines about that. She's being needled as being convicted fraudster, and that I think will become quite tiresome and have to be put to bed. But it is very much about loyalty, but I think also about competency, and certainly in John Healey's place, it's someone who's not going to challenge Andy Burnham too much. It's someone who's seen as a steady hand and competent and who will not spook the horses.
I would love to know what the Reeves family WhatsApp chat looks like at the moment, because, of course, Rachel Reeves allegedly offered this kind of big job but turned it down, so out of government. Her sister, Ellie Reeves, being promoted, so was Solicitor General, now Attorney General. And what does the sibling WhatsApp chat look like between those two? It would be fascinating to be a fly on the wall there. And on page 4 and 5 of The Times is kind of some of the suggestions of some of the policies that may be top of the agenda. We've already heard one this morning. VAT scrapped on household electricity bills, noticeably electricity, not gas. Electricity bills, allegedly going to save households £45 a year on the energy price cap from October. And then other kind of issues being picked out here, PM considering rent freezes, according to page 5 of the Times. A question about speculation of increasing additional rates of tax from 45 pence to 50, he said was, quote, premature. Obviously then the kind of argument around rough sleeping as well. There's indicative that just on 2 pages there is so much on the in tray, so much.
And huge amount, particularly, again, to go back to John Healey, he has big questions about how he's going to bring down the welfare bill, tackle national debt, what will defence spending look like. But Andy Burnham has said straight out the traps he wants to make life easier for people. He wants them to feel like they have more money in their pocket right away. And so that's what he is trying to set out. The rough sleeping vow was quite an interesting first policy. It really sets out where he wants his government to go and that he wants to be looking after the most vulnerable, and it is a classic Labour pledge. But for the majority, will people care very much about rough sleeping? Will they care about homelessness? I think perhaps what will convince people that that is the right first step is that this is a very visible problem in high streets, in city centres, and that is something that people do want to be dealt with. But there is some interesting tax proposals. We will hear more throughout today, but he is very much setting out his stall as quickly as possible and hoping that people will feel the benefits of that quickly too.
That graph, though, on the right-hand side of the page about homelessness is kind of a tough challenge for Andy Burnham, because it shows that homelessness in Manchester was at around 250 people in 2017 experiencing homelessness, drops down in 2021, but that, of course, was the efforts really made across the country as a result of the pandemic to get people off the streets and kind of away from harm. And then back to 2025, well, numbers have increased again. So, you know, there's, as with any of these promises, and especially these days, always receipts. And it'll be challenging to see how he kind of approaches those. What's the essence, do you think, regarding kind of devolution when it comes to Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland? What's been the response to what he's said so far?
Well, just on the issue of homelessness, housing is an issue that is devolved to the Scottish Government, and the Scottish Government pledged, I think it was back in 2018, that they were going to end rough sleeping, and that hasn't happened because it's not a straightforward pledge. It's not just about providing housing, it's about drug and alcohol services and health services and all of the holistic wraparound care that goes along with that. So it's a complicated picture. There is some sympathy between what Andy Burnham is proposing and certainly what the SNP has proposed. So homelessness and rough sleeping is a big issue for Scotland. For the SNP, capping bus fares is something that has been proposed, and that's certainly something of interest to the SNP. So there is some overlap in policy, and it certainly will be interesting to see how John Swinney, the First Minister in Scotland, works with Andy Burnham and what sort of additional powers he might be able to negotiate.
Now, prepare yourself for a segue. There are some MPs who might be ready now to go on holiday because they don't have a job in the cabinet. However,
nice
they
link.
may, thank you,
well done.
They may now face an AI airport border trial that's taking off, according to page 11 of the Times.
Yes, this is the man who is spearheading this at Dubai Airport, where this AI border technology is underway, seems like the most optimistic man in the planet. So this is, everybody, of course, wants the airport experience to go more smoothly. So this is using AI technology to scan faces. So it makes it apparently seamless just to go through the border. And at Dubai Airport, this has been trialled for first-class passengers, but now is being rolled out more generally. And it just shows machine over man. It can apparently clear 10 people simultaneously in under 4 seconds, which is something a human could not do. But the idea is to develop this so that when you get to the airport, you're scanned automatically, your bags are scanned, so you just walk in and go straight to the departure lounge without any pauses in between. But Paul Griffiths, who's the chief executive of Dubai Airports, has a great line in this piece. where he says, I've got an image in my mind that as you come out of the aircraft, it's a bit like going to Disney World, in that you just come off the plane, your bags magically appear, nobody stops you, and you just stroll all the way through. And it's just sort of making me think about the Jetsons.
I kind of like this kind of dream world that's being, maybe not dream world, maybe reality. I'll give him his due. But I'm thinking of the time I was in LAX earlier in the year, and there are some kind of systems already in US airports where your face gets scanned by a tablet at the barrier. I can promise you it really did not work. And we all kind of stood there as though we were kind of buffering in a kind of Disney experience, not going anywhere for about 10 minutes. So, you know, there's promise and there's premise, but who knows whether it's practical in the...
And we need to ask questions about privacy and facial recognition technology, data collection. Yeah, it's not straightforward.
Absolutely not. One person who definitely has got time to go on holiday, segue back again, page 9 of The Sun, are these images of, you always wonder what happens to the outgoing Prime Minister. Well, The Sun's found him. Found Sir Keir on the phone, pint in hand, looks like a pint of lager, maybe a tepid ale, if he's a true Brit, and then a picture beneath that of Rachel Reeves on the wines.
Yeah, she's on the Chardonnay by the looks of her. I mean, who can blame him, right? After the time he's had, straight down the pub, pint in hand, in the sunshine. And we see a more human side of Keir Starmer. I think now there will be a little bit of nostalgia for the Prime Minister gone by. And in the past few weeks, he's shown a lot more personality than he ever did when he was actually in charge. So perhaps he's going to segue to being the pint-swilling man that people actually do want to go for a drink with.
Bitter Keir is the line that The Sun went with. A little pointed there. That's what we've got time for. Really good to have you with us. Really good to have you with us. All of the latest on the situation coming up.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party.
I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Good morning. It is 7 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Rich and Frost.
With Sophy and Wilf, a very good morning from me as well.
Andy Burnham announces plans to remove VAT from energy bills in his first major policy announcement.
The PM picks his top team, John Healey as Chancellor, Ed Miliband as the Foreign Secretary, and Wes Streeting takes on defence.
We're live in Downing Street on Andy Burnham's first full day as Prime Minister. We'll also be looking ahead to his very first Cabinet meeting.
And we'll bring you reaction throughout the programme on economics, defence, health, unpacking how this government will affect you.
A 28-year-old man will appear in court later, charged with the murder of the former MP, Anna Widdecombe.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to the programme. Well, Andy Burnham has made his first major policy decision to help tackle the cost of living, announcing that VAT will be removed from domestic energy bills from October.
So he says it's all part of his efforts to create breathing room for families. It's a phrase he's used quite a lot in the last few days. And look, as he entered Downing Street, it was a pretty busy evening as he appointed a new cabinet, some big surprises. John Healey as Chancellor, Wes Streeting as Defence Secretary.
We're going to break down the new cabinet for you in just a second, but first let's look at the detail of that new energy bills announcement.
So it's all about VAT on electricity bills. Currently, families are charged 5% VAT on their electricity.
Well, Andy Burnham, the Prime Minister, is saying he will remove that from 5% to 0% from October, and the estimate is that that will reduce the average annual bill by £45 per year.
He has costed it. The new government says it's going to cost around £850 million, funded by the decision to scrap plans for a digital ID programme.
Let's go out to Lucy, who's in Downing Street for us. And Lucy, a snapshot both of the speed with which he wants to start moving and delivering policy, but also the direction of travel and the focus on the cost of living.
Absolutely that, Wilf. Good morning to both of you. I can't get my words out this morning after a busy day yesterday. For Andy Burnham, this is a man who wanted to come into number 10 and say that he has listened to the criticisms of Keir Starmer's government. One of those big criticisms was that he promised a lot, but people didn't feel that physical change with the amount of money in their pockets. Well, that first official policy announcement from him this morning, made even when a lot of people would have been asleep. That is the speed at which Andy Burnham wants to show he is going to deliver change. So as you say, this is all to do with bringing down electricity bills. It is worth saying that under Keir Starmer's government, they too tried to bring down energy bills by moving green levies off household bills onto general taxation. They said that that brought down energy bills by about £150. The actual figure was about 117. So this really is a continuation of that. It is being funded, according to those in number 10, by scrapping the digital ID scheme. The cost of it is going to be about £850 million. That will take us up to April next year, though. That is a hefty chunk of money for about 6 months, and it is because of them scrapping the digital ID scheme. So this was a really controversial announcement under Keir Starmer's government. The idea of it was to crack down on illegal working, but because of the backlash, they eventually watered that down and said that it would just help people access things like childcare. So instead of rooting around your kitchen drawer for a utility bill, you'd be able to present digital ID as proof of address. That was scrapped, and I think for Andy Burnham, that was his way of saying, I'm going to reprioritise. My real focus is the cost of living, and anywhere we can make some extra money, we are going to put that on to helping people. And his phrase was breathing space. He wants to give people some more breathing space. Now, there are obviously challenges with these things, and one of those is, of course, what is happening internationally. The Strait of Hormuz, this kind of major waterway for a lot of the world's oil supplies, is still effectively closed, and we've seen the impact that that's already had on energy bills, the pressure that was on Keir Starmer's government to do something about it. That is still a major problem for Andy Burnham, not just him now, though, but John Healey, the man who is now in number 11 as his Chancellor. So while this is a positive positive policy announcement, and there is no doubt that people right across the country will see this and potentially, you know, get some faith from it in their new Prime Minister. There are still challenges, and we shouldn't ignore those.
Lucy, thank you very much indeed. Well, spending, you know, 7 hours or whatever in Downing Street yesterday, the one thing that really struck me, actually, listening very carefully as I did to Andy Burnham's speech, is his story that he was trying to get about where he wants to take the country, his kind of 10-year plan, if you like. And it is all about reindustrialisation. Let's just listen to a bit.
We will make this moment a circuit breaker for Britain, bringing forward the biggest changes in the last 40 years. A new political model and a new economic model. In the 1980s, Britain took some wrong turns. Political power was centralised, economic power privatised, large parts of the country deindustrialised, and they still haven't recovered. Many feel as though they're still in decline, and they don't have the ability to turn things around. And that's why we will change politics, to make it more collaborative, more about problem solving than point scoring. And we will take power out of here and carry it into every postcode in the land so that they can do more. And in doing more, build a new economy.
So just to bring you some of the details of what happened when Andy Burnham announced his new new cabinet, I should say. It's been a very long day for me as well yesterday. It was a purge of the Starmerites, what happened. Darren Jones out, David Lammy out, Rachel Reeves out, although we do think she was offered some kind of other cabinet role, not one that she wanted to take, though. So who was in? Right, John Healey, we can start off with him. Let's have a look. This is the big surprise choice. He is the new Chancellor, in many ways quite a unifying figure. And also, of course, I think this is a way of Andy Burnham perhaps silencing people who were worried he's not going to find enough money for defence spending, putting the former Defence Secretary in as his right-hand man. The other person who was quite an eye-catching appointment is Ed Miliband as Foreign Secretary. There had, of course, been all these rumours that he was going to be Chancellor. That was seen as too much of a divisive appointment, so he's gone in to be Foreign Secretary. He described Donald Trump as a racist and misogynist, so see how that goes down. Also, other big appointments that we made as well. Wes Streeting, he went to defence. Of course, he decided to not run in that leadership contest against Andy Burnham. He's been rewarded with defence. And Shabana Mahmood, another person who we thought could end up as Chancellor, has actually stayed as Home Secretary, something she said she always wanted. Let's go back, have a little chat, Will.
I have to say that the top three, you have to step back, and whatever your views on those positions are, when there was all this debate of would it upset the left if Shabana Mahmood was the Chancellor or the other way round if Ed Miliband was, and he solved that pretty quickly with putting John Healey in, and yet still top jobs for the other two. The other thing I'd just say with Healey as well, I mean, you know, when he resigned, everyone said, what a man of principle, he's done it because he cares about defence spending. But there was a little question of, is he being strategic? Is he going at the right time? And by the way, he did precipitate Starmer's downfall, for sure. And one way or another, he's come out with the next best job outside of the top job. And I think we'll see if it is all principle or not, very clearly, as long as he lives up to his word and delivers 3% defence. And if he has, then his resignation has very clearly led to the spending he wanted to see on defence. And that's going to be a very difficult task in another way, which is, you know, where does he fund it from? But he has played a bit of a blinder in the last month or two.
Yeah, the other thing I'd say as well is, you know, going back... OK, let's go to Downing Street. We can talk to our political correspondent, Lucy. Lucy, talk to us about when Cabinet's expected to be.
Yeah, so that's expected to be 12:30 today, earlier than usual. Usually when I'm out here in the morning, or whoever else it is for Sky is shouting at the cabinet ministers as they walk up the street. A little bit later today. I think what's interesting is, OK, so we've got a number of returning faces, albeit in different roles. So John Healey is a good example of that. He'll be walking up the street as Chancellor of the Exchequer. Previously, he was Defence Secretary. You've also got a number of returning faces, close Andy Burnham allies. allies. One big one is Angela Rayner, former Deputy Prime Minister, former Housing Secretary as well. She now takes back the Housing Secretary role, a brief that she has always been keenly interested in. She had to stand down from that role because of controversy over her tax affairs. Do you remember that story that it was revealed that she'd underpaid stamp duty? Well, she's now been cleared of any wrongdoing. So she is now back in Andy Burnham's cabinet. Miata Fahnbulleh, you might not necessarily know that name, but she is a really close Andy Burnham ally. She's been working heavily on policy for him as he was kind of awaiting that move into number 10. She is coming in as his energy secretary. Interestingly as well, Andy Burnham has made some changes to cabinet roles. So he's now got a minister for AI, and that minister is going to sit in cabinet. That is a first, and I suppose sees where Andy Burnham sees his priorities, where his focus needs to be. That is going to Kanishka Narayan. He was previously working on online safety, so he will now sit in cabinet. I think one of the important points to note about an Andy Burnham cabinet is that while his meeting of those ministers will take place in number 10, a place that is the centre of power really, as well as of course the Houses of Parliament, Andy Burnham has made clear that this place is going to be rewired. He is shifting a lot of that power to the north. One of his big announcements before getting into number 10 was number 10 North, the civil service, people moving up to Manchester to really show that his focus is on driving power, getting it out of Westminster, and growth in every postcode. That is now one of his key phrases. So while cabinet will still be significant, will still be out here every week while they come into number 10, the mood around this number 10 is changing because so much of the power is also now going to be held in Manchester as well. I think that's one thing to note.
Lucy, great stuff. And just finally, I think it's going to be interesting to see how markets react today, because yesterday we did see yields rise, more because we didn't know who was going to be Chancellor. Healey was appointed quite late in the day, so you might have expected a little bit of an improvement today. At the same time, this spending announcement this morning, while small and largely funded, even if it's not fully funded, it might be taken by the markets as a sign of, oh, when we do have a little bit of spare money, a bit of headroom, we're going to spend it as opposed to save it. And we'll just see how markets respond to the open.
We just wanted to bring you next an update on the death of Anne Widdecombe, because a 28-year-old man has now been charged with the murder of the former Conservative minister, a Current Reform UK spokesperson. Her body was found at her home in Hayter in Devon nearly a fortnight ago.
Joshua Kerry from Rotherham is due to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court today. Let's bring in Barnaby, who's there for us and can tell us what to expect. Barnaby?
Well, essentially, this will be a first hearing for Joshua Kerry, Wilf. As a first hearing, he'll be asked to confirm his name and his age. Now, given the severity of the charge that he faces, a charge of murder, this won't be dealt with fully today. It won't be dealt with here. What will probably happen is a magistrate will refer it to the Crown Court, and it's possible that we might get a date for that first hearing at a Crown Court where this will be dealt with in full. He was arrested on suspicion of murder on July the 11th. 2 days later, he was re-arrested on suspicion of terror offences. He's not been charged with any of those, and police inquiries are ongoing. Well, the tributes were paid to Anne Widdecombe from across the political world after her death. She's been a huge figure, actually, I think, in British political life and British public life. She was first elected as a Conservative MP back in 1987. She served as a minister in the governments of John Major. She then left the Conservative Party. She was an MEP for the Brexit Party and latterly a spokesperson for Reform UK. She also enjoyed a significant media career. She appeared on Strictly Come Dancing. She was a regular panellist on many TV and radio shows over the years. After her death, there's been a renewed conversation about the safety of MPs. The Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, has called for an inquiry into MPs' safety, and counter-terror police have been working with parliamentary officials to ensure that MPs are aware of the procedures that are in place to look after them. So it will just be a first hearing here at Westminster Magistrates Court today. Joshua Kerry is likely to appear at some time after 10 o'clock. He'll probably arrive here in a prison van because he's been remanded in custody, and then this case will be taken, we expect, to a Crown Court.
Barnaby, thank you very much indeed. Well, it's all change here in the United Kingdom. We have a new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham. We know a little bit more about what he's going to do. He set out his first speech to the nation as Prime Minister yesterday, where he talked about turning back to correct some of the mistakes of the 1980s. He also has announced his first policy as well on energy bills, on the cost of living. So just to discuss that more, we're joined now by the new Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, who joins us now. Glad to be back.
Very glad to be back, yeah.
You didn't quite really enjoy being Chief Whip, did you?
Well, it's an important job. It's a privilege to serve in any capacity. But look, I think for the kind of things that I think make the biggest difference to the country, you know, I still get stopped in the street by people who work for British Steel or, you know, what we did with Harland and Wolff or the trade deal. So I think, yeah, the chance to serve in that. And it's a privilege in any capacity, but this is what I love doing.
Well, it's good to have you back on the morning round, we should say. So you've got a cost of living announcement on energy bills. What is it you're doing?
Well, it's a tremendous announcement for the first day of the new cabinet. So we are taking VAT off energy bills from October. That's going to mean straight away, when winter kicks in and people have those heavier bills, savings for everyone across the country. We can fund that by not going ahead with the plans for digital ID, so it's fully funded. There's no pressure arising from doing this. And again, it's about the government's priorities. It's about showing we understand people need some breathing space, the pressure that they are under, and being able to make an announcement like this, I think, is a real statement of intent.
You say it's fully funded. It's not completely funded, is it? I mean, so the VAT cut, I just look at the numbers from the release, the VAT cut estimated to cost £850 million in 2026 to 7, so what, £850 a year. Digital ID estimated to cost £1.8 billion over the next 3 years. That doesn't totally add up, does it?
Well, the truth is this. So the change to VAT on energy bills is funded for the rest of this year, so people will have the benefit of that this year. After that, of course, it will be a decision for a budget in the usual fashion, but we can use the switch spend from not going ahead with digital ID to fund it, and of course the longer-term decision, again, like any other decision.
So in the future, there'll have to be more money if you want to keep this policy? Yes.
Well, so obviously you're taking away significant pressure by not going ahead with digital ID, but yes, the longer term, like any policy on tax, would be decided in a budget. But being able to make this announcement today that people are going to get that relief that they need, a bit of breathing space that they need, I think is a significant statement of priorities.
I feel like as well there's one part of Andy Burnham's vision, the speech yesterday, that we're probably not talking about enough, and that's his industrial strategy. So he talked about reindustrialising Britain, using public procurement to back British industry. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I think this is hugely important. I know it means a great deal to him. When he talks, by the way, about reindustrialisation, that's not saying we're not proud of the services side of the British economy, which obviously is the majority. But if you want growth in all parts of the country, if you want it in every postcode, you'd have to take manufacturing seriously, you'd have to take industry seriously, and fundamentally, Sophie, that means got to make it more competitive. So, you know, a lot of heavy industry in the UK has got much more expensive energy bills themselves. They've got pressures through things like emissions trading, which don't exist in some comparable competitor countries, and we've got to understand that. It's always been important for me. You will know that the industrial strategy brings down industrial electricity prices for significant parts of industry, so we've got a lot going on already to build on. Procurement's a part of that as well, skills, apprenticeships, training, but I think if you want the kind of economic progress we need in all parts of the UK, you have to take this seriously.
I mean, Burnham said yesterday that in the 1980s, Britain took some wrong turns. Many parts of the country deindustrialised, they still haven't recovered. I mean, he's blaming Labour governments as well, right?
Look, I think,
Keir Starmer.
Let's be frank, Sophie, this is how a lot of people feel in the UK. It's not saying that other governments in that time have not done some good things. Of course they have. But this frame, this kind of overarching position for the British economy where people feel it's, you know, sometimes described as Portugal with Singapore at the bottom, but the sense of it's the southeast that booms and we redistribute that. That is strongly felt. People sometimes in London don't like to hear that, but that is the truth. And I think actually it's something all of the UK, it's not a north-south thing, all of the UK understands. And again, it comes down to, are the priorities, are the policies of the government ones which allow the economy in every part of the UK to flourish?
Honestly, do you think that Andy Burnham gets that more than Keir Starmer got it?
Look, I think Andy Burnham has always got that. I think it has been one of the reasons why, frankly, he's been a popular politician when other ones of us haven't been at the same time. I know he wants to make a difference on this. And look, we've had now a series of quite dramatic political events in the UK. You might, for instance, look at the results of the Brexit referendum and map that against deindustrialisation in the 80s. And there is a story there. There is something that needs to be heard on that. And I think Andy perhaps more than anyone else, has always understood that. Look,
honestly.
Again, I will defend any Labour Prime Minister administration for the good things that they've done, and I'm proud of those things. But I do think when I ask myself the question, why has Andy been able to differentiate himself in a way, why people look to him at a time when they'd be willing, in my area at times, to vote for him, but not for the national Labour government or even the local council at times. Why has he had something distinct? I think he understands and speaks to that very much.
Is it a bit like Donald Trump in the way it's, you know, not America first, but Britain first when it comes to things like procurement?
Look, I don't think it's... I wouldn't necessarily make the comparison with President Trump, with Andy, but I do think that, look, the UK will always be and have to be an outward-facing, internationally linked and aligned.
But you're talking about prioritising British industry,
I think the priority has got to be understanding that sometimes people have felt that the policies of the past haven't been to the benefit of every part of the UK. Some parts have benefited, then we kind of redistribute the progress of that. We've got to get back to something which means good jobs in every part of the country.
Talking Donald Trump, how do you think Ed Miliband's going to get on with him?
Oh, I think, as ever, that this government will work with allies across the world. I know from my experience last time on some of the trade deal negotiations, it can be a robust exchange with our US friends and allies, but they will stand up for what they believe their national interest is, and we will do the same.
The reason I say is because back in 2016, Ed Miliband described Donald Trump as a racist, misogynistic, self-confessed groper. I mean, it's lucky he hasn't got, you know, thin skin or anything.
Well, sometimes I reflect on things that members of the US administration have themselves said about different people in US politics. So they are quite a robust bunch over there in the US. And I know that they'll have their priorities, we've got ours. Can we work together on lots of things in mutual interest to both countries? Absolutely we can.
OK. Just finally, we've gone from 3 of the 4 great officers of state being women to 1 in 4. Has Andy Burnham got a women problem?
No, don't forget as well, we've got to take the whole cabinet in the round, the First Secretary of State, for instance, Lou Haig. We look at the overall numbers behind that. And
they put them in the nice kind of girly departments, you know, health, education,
I don't think
the
that's
kind of caring
true. I mean,
department.
the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, people will know, is the kind of powerful coordinating role, the Prime Minister's person.
Are you really arguing that, you know, you've got a male Chancellor, you've got a male Foreign Secretary, you've got a male Prime Minister, but don't worry, love, you've got, you know, a female Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster?
I am just saying that some of the powerful jobs in this government, some of the most powerful jobs in the Labour movement, Labour Party, are held by women. Of course, that balance is important. I wouldn't, you know, in any way deflect from that. But I think look at the overall team here.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Jonathan Reynolds speaking to us there. Thank you very much.
Now, we're talking there about priorities for the new government. And during his first speech in Downing Street yesterday, Andy Burnham said he planned to end rough sleeping.
Well, that's been met with optimism and some cynicism as well in Manchester, where he made exactly the same pledge, and it went up, as Tom Parmenter reports.
It's tough. So you're trying to basically just keep yourself alive, basically. I've realised over the last 6 weeks how hard it is.
Until recently, Ben had a home and a job. Now his whole life is in his backpack, and he's constantly looking for somewhere safe to sleep.
My bag is wrapped around my hand every night, just to make sure nobody can take it, because that bag's got basically my life in it. It's got my sleeping bag, change of clothes, bits of food.
This homeless charity kitchen helps keep him and many others going.
If there was one thing that you could say to the Prime Minister about sorting this out, what would it be?
Just do whatever you can to get, because a lot of these people that are on the streets could then be contributing to society.
Luke has had 10 years without a proper home.
I've pretty much lost my life because of not having a stable home.
Do you think any Prime Minister can solve rough sleeping?
No.
Helen has been there too, but told us Andy Burnham's approach could make a difference.
Anyone can be there. There's plenty of people that are just 1 or 2 steps away from that place, and it's looking at everybody as an individual and, you know, restoring their dignity and helping them to live the life that they really want to live.
When he was elected mayor here back in 2017, Andy Burnham promised to end rough sleeping in Greater Manchester. He even donated 15% of his wages to help solve it. But after some progress, the numbers have crept back up.
You don't have to go far to find it. Near Piccadilly Station, we met Liam.
When you hear that he wants to try and improve it nationally, you're not buying into it?
Nah, no, because they just look after themselves. At the end of the day, we're out here, nothing. You know what I mean? There's how many hotels? Whole streets covered in hotels. Just not an immigrant, not come on a boat. I'm sorry to say it like that, but it is. I'm a UK citizen and I should have my own gaff.
The team at the Homeless Charity Kitchen, which the PM has spent time at, believe it is a genuine commitment.
He will do whatever it takes to get people on local level what they need to strive and to thrive in their communities. We're always going to have people sleeping on the streets, but I think the length that people are there can be reduced. I think one night is the maximum anyone should ever be anywhere on the streets.
It's Andy Burnham's first big policy pledge, but the persistence of this problem, here in his own backyard, shows how hard it is to crack. Tom Parmenter, Sky News, Manchester.
Let's get you up to speed on some of the stories outside of politics now. And in the Middle East, the US has struck Iran for a 10th night, targeting military command centres, it says, to prevent Iran from attacking ships in the Strait of Hormuz. It comes as a crew on board a vessel in the Strait was forced to abandon their tanker when it was reportedly hit by a projectile.
The Tate brothers, Andrew and Tristan Tate, have appeared in a US court. They're fighting to avoid extradition to the UK. So the brothers are facing 38 charges, including rape and sex trafficking. Their lawyer said the case was garbage and a stitch-up job. Outside court, they deny the charges.
Spain's World Cup winning team have received a hero's welcome in Madrid after they beat Argentina for the title. Over 2 million people hit the streets to catch a glimpse of the trophy and the victorious team. Congrats to them. Looks like they enjoyed it. Much deserved celebration there. Right, coming up after the break, the chairman and CEO of JP Morgan tells us what he's hoping for from the new Prime Minister. That's next.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News. Is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back. The boss of America's largest bank says it's crucial the UK gets its tax system right under Prime Minister Burnham to strengthen the economy and lift living standards across the country. I sat down with the chairman and CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, and asked what he's hoping for from the new PM.
I want him to succeed. I want to see the UK thrive. I want London to succeed. I'd like London to be our home for a long period of time. It's been a wonderful home for us. But the UK, like everybody else, and like my own country, you need a strong economy to do that. A strong economy will benefit all of your citizens. You know, and just travel around the world and look what happens when, when bad policies muck up a country. So, the new chancellor is going to be good policies that actually cause growth. And growth, good policies are free, and growth is the best antidote. Growth also helps the lowest paid people the most. Sometimes you look like you're doing a policy that's in benefit of a big company or wealthy people, but it's growth which will drive it for everybody. And it also creates the wealth of the nation that they can use to fix schools and roads and hospitals and all of that. So, I'm praying that they get policy right. And government after government get it wrong. And look at Europe would be a primary example that they've been slowly slipping on most measures of economic competitiveness, and it's a bad idea. And it's not, and that is not helping the lower paid people, which is people on the left and the right say.
One tax that's talked about a lot is the banks levy. It's a 3% extra corporate tax that other sectors don't have to pay.
There's two different taxes we have there extra, yes.
And it used to be 8%. Rishi Sunak brought it down to 3%. What if that went back up again?
It would be one more negative on that bucket of things you got to think about. I always thought it was wrong. JP Morgan did not damage the UK, and I called the chancellor at the time. Did not damage the UK. We're a great citizen there. We hire people there. We want to be bigger there. We train people there. We hire veterans there. We have programs for people. We have medical. All of our people get medical and all this stuff like that. And I just thought it was lack principle to punish a company. It had nothing to do with the crisis. Didn't cause the crisis, and it's still there. 17 years later. Is that fair to a shareholder? I mean, it may sound great, tax the banks, but it's $5 billion that my shareholders paid on that extra tax. And, I just think things like that have adverse consequences. So if a government decides to do it, there's nothing I can do, but it will, over time, cause decisions made that they may not like.
The new Canary Wharf building you announced the day after Rachel Reeves' last budget, when she didn't put that up, would you U-turn on that building?
Well, that's a binary decision. I don't know what I do. I wouldn't make a binary decision like that. I thought Rachel did a great job, by the way. I want London to be our happy home for a long time. I would be very cautious if I was a government thinking that penalizing any company, out of the ordinary is a good thing for that country. And what they should have, in my view, is a competitive tax system that's consistent and conducive to capital formation that'll drive a country, drive the growth of a country. That is what they should do. If you have an uncompetitive tax system, capital leaves your country. And if capital leaves your country, it goes to other countries, and you see that. And now you see, how many companies have delisted from London in the last couple of years?
A lot.
I mean, I wouldn't want to see that if I was running a country.
Do you have great sympathy for politicians?
I think politics is a very tough game. I always remind myself, there are a lot of people who want to do the right thing, who care about their country. They may disagree with you, by the way, so maybe more of that, but I don't disrespect someone who's got a different point of view about what might work out there.
Jamie Dimon, then, the chairman and CEO of JP Morgan Chase.
And you heard a bit there about corporate America's hope for the economic direction of the country, and we can talk about the challenges facing the new Chancellor, John Healey, as well. He's our economics and data editor at Conway.
We've got a new Chancellor, not the one that people had expected. It is this man, John Healey, former Defence Secretary, gets in to number 11. And he's going to be faced with all sorts of difficult decisions coming up. Perhaps the thing that will overshadow his tenancy is something that pretty much every previous Chancellor hasn't been able to deal with, which is that we've got really weak productivity in the UK. When I say productivity, that's just the amount of wealth that we're generating across the economy. It's perhaps this is the most important of all the charts, because what this is showing is productivity growth in different eras, cumulative productivity growth going back to the 1760s. The higher the bar, the more rich we're getting, basically, over time. And that is the story of the last few years, decade and a bit. And we have basically, over that period, had the weakest growth in the amount of money we're generating per person, per hour we work, in over 2 centuries. It's incredibly depressing, to be honest with you. And what's doubly depressing about this is the UK, you know, we're kind of similar to Europe, but actually if you compare us, and this line is basically showing you the same thing just over recent years, a little bit of growth. Compare us to the US and just look at the divergence. So America has just been getting wealthier and wealthier and wealthier, and the UK has been lagging far behind. And people are kind of scratching their chins, and, you know, this will doubtless be part of the briefing that John Healey gets about what it could be. Is it the fact that America invests lots more money? This is just showing you research and development investment, tech, non-tech. America invests a lot. The UK invests comparatively little. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's the fact that we have some of the highest energy prices in the world, which makes it really hard to reindustrialise. Maybe it's the fact that our broadband speeds are lower than most other countries around the world. Put it all together, and it's an enormous challenge. And on top of that challenge is the fact that, well, John Healey was the Defence Secretary. He was really focused on this line, which is defence spending, OK? And he left when there was... Remember that Defence Investment Plan? That was the moment, the trigger for him leaving. He thought the line wasn't going high enough, fast enough. But here's the issue. Here's the challenge he's faced with, OK? If that line's going to get up to where he kind of wanted it to head, 3.5% of GDP kind of in the next decade, you are talking about, just going to kind of show you a line here, you're talking about £24 billion of extra spending per year, which is equivalent to 3.5p on the basic rate of income tax. So that is something the Treasury looked at and they were horrified about. And now that he's actually in charge of the Treasury, is he going to be aiming for that? Is it going to mean higher taxes? What does it mean for the rest of government? There are going to be so many questions which he is going to have to handle in the coming months. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens.
Well, joining me now is Danny Sriskandarajah, Chief Executive at the New Economics Foundation, to discuss all of this. Very good morning to you. Good to see you. Good morning. Firstly, broad question. Do you think the markets, the business community will welcome the appointment of John Healey as Chancellor?
Yes, I think so. He's a very experienced politician. He's been in Parliament since '97. He's been a minister in Treasury. He's held senior government posts. I think he knows his economics. And most importantly, I think Andy Burnham trusts him. And what we don't want is further instability. You know, if Burnham had picked someone he didn't know and get on with well, there's always that risk that the tension between numbers 10 and 11 gets too much. So I think this is a solid appointment.
Presumably, it's a given now that defence spending will get up to 3% of GDP. It'd be quite a sort of unprincipled U-turn from him if that didn't happen. That's quite a big increase in spending that has to be delivered. What options does he have available? And is this idea of defence bonds to borrow but almost brush it under the carpet realistic or not?
Yeah, look, I think there's probably 3 sets of pressures. There's a short-term pressure. If they're going to do more on cost of living, they're going to have to find that money within the headroom, and they'll be scrambling around, I think, from today, thinking about where they can find that money. In the medium term, yes, they'll probably have to go for something like a defence bond or other ways of crowding in the sort of investment they need. In the long term, let's not forget, there is a huge fiscal headache for any government. You know, we've already got a gap between the taxes the state raises and the cost of running the British state. That gap is only going to grow as our population ages, as health costs increase, as pension costs increase. And so in the long term, any chancellor is going to have to confront that gap between what taxes and expenditure in the British state.
So you're suggesting cuts in spending elsewhere, or?
Well, look, we're talking about 10 percentage points by the OBR's own projections over the next few decades. So the gaps we're talking about today will pale into insignificance when you look at the long-term questions. And there, I think we need a grown-up, honest conversation as a country about what sort of state do we want. We can't have European levels of public services with US levels of taxation. So do we, therefore, increase taxes more generally, or do we want to live with a smaller state that focuses on the core things like keeping us safe?
How many easy taxes are there left to increase, or levers to pull in that area? Are there any that you would point people towards?
It's nothing easy, but I think what we've heard from Burnham is a focus on equity. You know, he's talking about fairness and looking after people who are being affected by the cost of living crisis. So I think he'll go for things like equalising capital gains tax. Rachel Reeves started that process. I hope actually that this is something he does. You know, we've seen that the rewards from wealth, you know, if you own an asset, if you're lucky enough to own an asset, the rewards these days that you get from that are hardly taxed. And so I think we need to sort of level the playing field. There's some loopholes that can be closed as well. We have a very lumpy tax system, and I think there's some work that can be done there. And of course, you know, let's not forget, Burnham will host the G20 presidency next year. And, you know, I, for one, will be looking for something like international coordination on, say, a minimum tax on billionaires. It's been talked about at G20s in the last couple of years, an effective floor for billionaires to pay, say, 2% tax on their net wealth. It will work much more effectively if it's done in coordination with other countries. It's the sort of flagship thing that will, you know, help tackle inequality, but also raise precious resources here and elsewhere. I
mean, I'm not sure we'll see certain tax states like Monaco or Dubai sign up to that, but we shall see. Just finally, you know, mentioning there that the markets should, you know, welcome the Healey appointment. On the flip side, will they worry, although it's small, about the announcement this morning of more money for energy bills? It's small, it's apparently costed in the short term, but does it sort of hint to the markets that when there is a little bit more room, it'll be money going out the door, not being saved?
No, look, I think they've been very careful even this morning to say that this is a fully funded initiative. And I think markets will also react favourably to the fact that all of this is about putting money back into people's pockets. And what we know about that sort of initiative is that it will increase the spending power. Households have £45 more on average. They'll spend that. That'll boost demand. That'll keep the economy going. And so these sort of initiatives might actually end up boosting demand and aiding growth in the long term in a way that austerity just hasn't been able to do over the last 15 years.
Danny, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. We are going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be speaking to some of the families of those missing after 2 ships carrying refugees capsized in the Bay of Bengal. That's coming up next.
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Can you tell us who you're looking for? Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal? Not like you said it.
From the UK?
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's rang out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcast.
It's like a football final with only one team on the pitch. This isn't just a call to vote, but a call to remember. The freedom fought for by the African National Congress.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa.
A cyclone and 2 burst dams wiped out hundreds of generational homes.
This was the second dam that the floodwaters hit before it tore into Derna.
We are in the heart of Nairobi, and we're watching as protesters were heavily tear gassed.
The sheer fearlessness and persistence of these guys is astonishing.
We help you understand the world with us.
I remember going into the iconic Omdurman market in the heart of Sudan's capital for the first time since the war started. And this is what's left of it. Bullet holes through buildings, shelled balconies, bullet cases on the floor. I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories and the lives of millions of people. This is insane. This was a bustling residential area. So many friends who lived here. My most memorable interview was with a 15-year-old boy who'd survived being stranded on a migrant boat on its way from Senegal to the Canary Islands.
After 13 days, our food, water and fuel supply ran out.
I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Yusra Bagher, Sky News.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now? Hello again. Well, last month there was this awful tragedy off the coast of Myanmar. You might not have heard about it. Over 500 people capsized in the sea as they tried to escape the war-torn country.
They're mostly Rohingya refugees who've been trying to get to Malaysia to create a new life. Well, our Asia correspondent Cordelia Lynch spoke to some of the families that have family members missing.
There's nothing to wash away this family's pain. The tears, like the monsoon rains in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, keep falling. Lalu is shaking with grief, and her husband, Nur, looks haunted, hollowed. Their 15-year-old son, Jani Alam, is missing. He may be one of more than 500 people feared dead after 2 boats bound for Malaysia, packed with mostly Rohingya people, vanished off the coast of Myanmar. More and more people are risking it all at sea to escape poverty here in the world's largest refugee camp. But Lalu says her son was kidnapped. They paid smugglers a £1,600 ransom to send him home.
যে আর পুয়ারের লুগিতে হিন্দিলা করি আরো ঘটনা বাড়ি যার গই এন্দিলা করি বহুত ফোন এন্দিলা করি লই যার গই বহুত আছে দালালক করে এ সুর করি লই যার গই সামিলা লই যায় বড় তুলে দি ফেলের কেসু মরি যার গই এন্দিলা আরিয়া মামু
4 days ago, a smuggler sent this message to them.
Challa sinda garana aru bhai bijana sinda garana bole tara ye bishi awa samar ba bujbe jane tupige bole hero de habor eta in noi 55 news bujbe jane.
But he gave no proof of life.
There are more than 1 million people here in Cox's Bazar, with most displaced from their homeland around a decade ago. They have little access to education, employment, and support from aid agencies is rapidly declining too. It feels increasingly desperate, with more and more people risking it all to leave, and some being forced to.
Rafiq never thought he'd see his family again. He is one of just 9 survivors after a boat carrying 280 people capsized in April.
তারপর লাশিন দাস গো মানে ওদের গাল লই আরা যারা জীবিত ছিলাম বাসি তার গাম্মা দৌজিতে গায় তো লাশিন গো টেলিতাম তারপরও ডলাইতে কি কইছিম তালার হুকুম কেনে রাইতে বেন তো হাড়ি গই অন্য হারি তিও রাইত থাইতে যে আই পুরা দিন আসুরাদা ছিলাম লাতিও গো 2 লিটারে পানির বোতল হইলাম মিনে হালি বিবালে কি বাসি পুরা যাইতাছে
Do you still struggle with memories of what happened?
এর দিন মানে দেখি ওন গুম গেলে মনে স্বপ্ন মাঝে ইয়া করি মানে স্বপ্ন পরে তাই কল্পনা করি নেডিলে ইয়ার পর লাতিয়া বই করে মানে ডরাই যাব গুয়াতিকা
Teknaf is where Rafiq started his perilous journey. This boat, once packed with refugees, is one of few caught by the Coast Guard before it could go any further. Smugglers rarely talk, but this one has agreed to. Why? Guilt. He sent 20 people on the same boat as Rafiq. They all died.
Mani onrobhabe gya mane dilor shorulor bituttun. Ogamani kiyaye jala jottorani aye argomno lage balano lage. Hitarar mrittoyede hianollai boli etor hamkeni gori felailam endilla goriyere ar fuzzi mori jai toi boli aji ai can goitam arekjon can goribo can gori thaki parer ian ayete attun manot.
You must have known the risks that you were placing these people in. These were women and children. Why did you keep doing it for so many years?
Mani itara tia jala mane ai tia jala guji itara jamara totmare bafaindona totmare jaibu huye ianollai boli gusilam ai gujilam ai iya to ar haz ai sari felai.
It is hard to believe that more than 500 people are currently missing at sea, and yet there's no search teams trying to find them. Seemingly invisible people, some tricked by traffickers, some tortured, so many simply in search of a better life. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Bangladesh.
Well, we are going to pivot back out to Downing Street next. Lucy's there for us. And Lucy, I guess, what time is the Cabinet meeting? Do we have a set time? You're not going to be seeing the new ministers arrive just yet, but eagerly anticipating their arrival, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's at 12:30 today, and as you're saying, Wilf, usually it's actually much earlier in the morning. So they'd be walking up Downing Street pretty much in the next half an hour or so. We'd be shouting questions at them. Today, it's a little bit later, and no doubt at the top of that meeting, you know, Andy Burnham will talk about his priorities, his focus. He's made that one announcement this morning, which kind of sums up really what his overall policy direction is, and that is on the cost of living. His first official policy announcement in office is that he's going to cut VAT from electricity bills from 5% to 0%. Number 10 saying that they believe that will take about £45 off the annual Ofgem price cap. They are saying that they very much expect energy suppliers to pass that down to customers. He is saying that that is, you know, part of this promise to give households, families across the country breathing space. One of the criticisms of Keir Starmer's government was that they made a lot of promise on the cost of living. People did not feel that change quickly enough. I'm going to bring you something, though, because that is already... we've got a little bit of internal Labour Party drama, if you like, already this morning. And there's a danger of over-exaggerating that, but already it's getting Labour MPs talking. So Darren Jones used to be the Prime Minister's right-hand man, Keir Starmer's Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister. His role, he was in charge of the Cabinet Office, in charge of rolling out this controversial scheme to introduce digital ID. Andy Burnham is saying this morning that he's funding this cut to energy bills by scrapping that digital ID programme. Number 10 is saying this morning, well, it's fully funded. It's going to cost about £850 million. Well, we're getting the cash by scrapping the digital ID scheme. Darren Jones has just posted online this morning saying it's good news that VAT will be cut on electricity bills. But, he says, the digital ID programme was unfunded. The government will have to set out how it will pay for its new policies at the budget. Now, that is a contradiction, isn't it, from what Andy Burnham is saying this morning. He's saying it's fully funded. A couple of Labour MPs have already texted me to say, that's a bit naughty from Darren Jones. And what you've got there, really, is somebody who is extremely loyal to Keir Starmer, loyal until the very end. He was out on Downing Street yesterday morning at the front of that crowd cheering Keir Starmer, having his say on a new Andy Burnham administration. And look, like I said, I don't want to kind of... There's a danger of over-dramatising this, OK? You know, I think Darren Jones would say himself that he wants Andy Burnham to do well and that the Labour Party is uniting behind him. But what you've got there is a public display of, hang on a second, you're saying that that's fully funded, and it's not. And he knows that because he's running the digital ID scheme. I hope you're keeping up. But yeah, that's getting Labour MPs talking this morning, and I've no doubt that's being shared around around the WhatsApp groups. A reminder that while Andy Burnham has said one of his priorities will be uniting the Labour Party, there is still a hint of division there, isn't there?
Lucy, thank you very much indeed.
Obviously, that coming out in the last few moments. It is interesting, of course, because John Healey only tweeted about this himself, you know, an hour or so ago, and to directly re-quote that tweet, as Lucy says, it's quite provocative from the outgoing number two, if we frame it that way, of Keir Starmer.
So I think just kind of going into the stats of this, firstly, even if it was the 1.8 billion, that doesn't fully cover the cost of the VAT, right? Over, as Johnny Reynolds was saying, they got 1 year of funding there, but after that, it would still need to be funded by something else because this money, even if this was funded, comes out. The 1.8 billion, I should say, has not been plucked from thin air by Team Burnham. What this has actually come from is the OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility, assessment of what the digital ID regime would require in funding. So they reckon it would cost 1.8 billion. That is what Andy Burnham's team have basically taken as the cost of the scheme, which feels fair enough. The only problem is, if the government doesn't recognise that figure, which they didn't under Keir Starmer, it's not worked into their sums. No. And my understanding, you know, speaking to people close to it, is that it was going to be sorted out at future budgets. So it is still effectively money, Darren Jones would argue, that the Team Burnham need to sort out. It's not as simple as that.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to, see in the weeks ahead, but even just the hours ahead when the market's open, is the extent to which people are saying, is this just a one-off, small, unfunded little bit of spending, or is there going to be more of it to come? And markets can take a small thing in their stride. If we start to have expectations of lots more requirements like this to come, then it'll be different. So much more for us to discuss on this and all of the cabinet appointments. We'll be right back with all of today's top stories.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
With Sophie and Wilf, good morning from both of us.
Andy Burnham announces plans to remove VAT from energy bills in his first major policy announcement.
The Prime Minister picks his top team, John Healey as Chancellor, Ed Miliband the Foreign Secretary, and Wes Streeting takes on defence.
We're live in Downing Street on Andy Burnham's first full day as PM, and we'll be looking ahead to his first cabinet meeting.
And look, we'll also be trying to work out what an Andy Burnham premiership means for you, including we'll be talking to the boss of America's largest bank, Jamie Dimon, who says it's crucial the UK gets its tax system right.
Also today, a 28-year-old man will appear in court later, charged with the murder of the former MP Anne Widdecombe.
Good morning, welcome to the programme. Andy Burnham has made his first major policy decision to help tackle the cost of living. VAT is going to be removed from household energy bills from October.
He said it's part of his efforts to create breathing room for families, a phrase he used yesterday as he entered Downing Street. It was a busy afternoon and evening as he appointed his new cabinet with some big surprises, including John Healey as Chancellor and Wes Streeting as Defence Secretary.
Right, let's look at the details, shall we, of some of the energy bill announcement that we've got today. Have a look at that. So currently households are charged 5% VAT on their energy bills.
The new Prime Minister says he'll remove that from October, which he says will take around £45 per year off the average bill.
And the new government estimates that this policy will cost around £850 million, but will be funded, they say, by the decision to scrapping plans for a digital ID programme.
Well, in the last few minutes, there's been a reply to that decision from the former Chief Secretary to the PM under Keir Starmer, Darren Jones, who's not received a place, of course, in the new cabinet. He says, good news that VAT will be cut on electricity bills. It's a simple way for families to save a few quid and to mechanically help keep inflation that little bit lower. But the digital ID programme was unfunded. The government will have to set out how it will pay for its new policies at the budget.
So, look, I think there's two things here. The first is on the funding of it, because, look, the OBR, so the Office of Budget Responsibility, came up with this 1.8 billion figure, so they haven't just plucked it from nowhere. But that wasn't recognised by the government, so whatever happens, it was money that would have to have been worked out in future budgets. It is effectively unfunded. But also, I guess perhaps the most important point is, in a major reshuffle, the big risk, of course, is alienating the people you kicked out, and that's exactly what's happened with Darren Jones.
It was also pointed, you know, when you reread it again the second time, it's not just this point about funding. He also said, nice to see a few quid knocked off bills to mechanically lower inflation. So he's having a dig at the upside of it as well.
Yeah, exactly. Darren Jones, of course, a key ally of Keir Starmer. There was hints, of course, of him actually running for the leadership against Andy Burnham. He ruled himself out of that after a meeting with Andy Burnham where he said he got reassurances on his economic vision, but I think he was hoping for a job, right?
Well, let's just get a taste of some of the other policies that we might get to have coming from the new Premiership in the weeks and months ahead. Here was an extract from Burnham yesterday.
We will make this moment a circuit breaker for Britain, bringing forward the biggest changes in the last 40 years. A new political model and a new economic model. In the 1980s, Britain took some wrong turns. Political power was centralised, economic power privatised, large parts of the country deindustrialised, and they still haven't recovered. Many feel as though they're still in decline, and they don't have the ability to turn things around. And that's why we will change politics, to make it more collaborative, more about problem solving than point scoring. And we will take power out of here and carry it into every postcode in the land so that they can do more. And in doing more, build a new economy.
I think this is significant, actually, and I think this is the story of the Burnham administration that we'll hear again and again. I asked the Business Secretary, Johnny Reynolds, about it earlier today.
Let's be frank, Sophie, this is how a lot of people feel in the UK. It's not saying that other governments in that time have not done some good things. Of course they have. But this frame, this kind of overarching position for the British economy where people feel it's, you know, sometimes described as Portugal with Singapore at the bottom, but the sense of it's the southeast that booms and we redistribute that. That is strongly felt. People sometimes in London don't like to hear that, but that is the truth. And I think actually it's something all of the UK, it's not a north-south thing, all of the UK understands. And again, it comes down to, are the priorities, are the policies of the government ones which allow the economy in every part of the UK to flourish?
Honestly, do you think that Andy Burnham gets that more than Keir Starmer got it?
Look, I think Andy Burnham has always got that. I think it has been one of the reasons why, frankly, he's been a popular politician when other ones of us haven't been at the same time.
Well, here you have it. New cabinet.
Do you know what? I'm quite excited by this walk because we can discuss. They're pretty big, aren't they? Whoa. There goes the Chancellor right up there next to us. Anyway.
So Andy Burnham, we know, obviously, Prime Minister, and this was the big surprise, John Healey, because they've been in all sorts of psychodrama about, is it going to be Shabana Mahmood and annoy the left? Is it going to be Ed Miliband and enjoy the centrists? It ended up being the guy in the middle.
And I feel like we can't really discuss the significance of this appointment until we just broaden out and see the top 3 jobs as a whole, because, as you said, it was a bit of a surprise that John Healey got Chancellor, because everyone just thought it was either going to be the centrist Shabana Mahmood or the soft left Ed Miliband. And what's rather brilliant strategically, regardless of what you think about any of these individuals, is he kind of appeased everyone in one. Top jobs still for these two, but not actually either of them getting the Chancellor role. And it seemingly worked quite well, that, in terms of the initial reactions.
Yeah. The other thing is, Andy Burnham has been criticised for not having an international vision, not taking defence seriously enough. Putting the guy who resigned from Keir Starmer's cabinet because he wasn't spending enough on defence as Chancellor is also quite a smart move, right? Because it's harder to make that criticism. Also, he's got to find the bloody money for defence now, right? So
he's got a tough job on that, because it's going to be a lot if he goes as far. By the way, he didn't just say 3% soon by the end of the Parliament. He said 3.5% long term. So he's got a serious job of working out where to find that money. Just to state the obvious, Shabana Mahmood staying at Home Secretary. Reportedly, in the weeks before, she was at least considered for other roles, but she really wanted to stay there, wants to finish the job. And look, Ed Miliband, as you pointed out already, Sophie, maybe it solves an issue that he had to get a top job but didn't want to spook the markets. But he might spook some relationships like that with the President.
Yeah, exactly. He's previously, I mean, back in 2016, fair to say, but he previously described Donald Trump as a racist and a misogynist. So I'll have to see how Ed Miliband's relationships with the White House go.
So the other big surprise, and it came really late in the day, it was sort of not confirmed till about 9 or 10 p.m, Wes Streeting getting the role of Defence Secretary. And again, slightly unclear if he was the first choice, so because Rachel Reeves, who's absent from this all, hasn't got a top job, might have been offered it. We don't really know.
Yeah.
But we didn't know he was going to get this. And this is a big job, not quite a top 3 job, but a big job for the man that, resigned and helped trigger the downfall of Keir Starmer.
Yeah, I think it's a reward for Wes Streeting, to be honest, because he is one of those people who is not a natural Burnham ally, but he has been rewarded. And I think that is because there is a feeling within Team Burnham that actually Wes Streeting has behaved quite maturely by pulling out of the leadership contest quite early and being collaborative with them. I'm getting a bit of cold water on the noises that Rachel Reeves was offered defence. It may have been another cabinet position, but it was very late, which makes you think, what's gone on there?
Now, a few more to get to. In fact, we won't perhaps get to the most important one. But look, Yvette Cooper, a downgrade from Foreign Secretary to Health Secretary, but a very important job, and obviously someone that keeps a role in Cabinet. You might mention Pat McFadden there, keeps exactly the same role in pensions. We spoke to Johnny Reynolds earlier. He stays in Cabinet but moves role. But almost want to come to Lou Haig next, because this is a very powerful role, even if it's not as sexy as the top 3 roles. Perhaps she's going to be even more powerful behind the scenes.
Yeah, so she is Andy Burnham's fixer, right? She's been right by his side throughout the whole thing. She actually put a lot of noses out of joint when she said in a podcast recently that she's been planning Andy Burnham taking over for Keir Starmer for a year. And First Secretary of State, Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, again, as you were saying, not well-known jobs necessarily, but she will be key. And I think that her and the other person is Annalise Midgley, who is the party chair, are going to be absolutely essential to the Andy Burnham administration.
Yeah, I think really interesting, this cabinet. And if we do pull out again, once again, one of the key takeaways is how much change there's been, and some of the absent faces that we've mentioned. Rachel Reeves, Darren Jones, who's already sticking his oar in just a little bit, and David Lammy as well, amongst others. Let's get out to Lucy, because, Lucy, all of these people will be arriving in Downing Street, but not quite yet, but a cabinet meeting in a few hours' time.
Yeah, a little bit later than usual, about 12:30 today, and no doubt a lot of the faces walking up, a lot of the people walking up will have smiles on their faces, big ones, because a lot of them have had promotions, a lot of them are returning. You know, Angela Rayner, for example, who was Deputy Prime Minister, coming back as Housing Secretary. Wes Streeting, especially, I'm sure he'll be walking up with a huge beam on his face, knowing that he's going in as Defence Secretary. There will be some faces that you might not know as much. I'm thinking somebody like Miata Fahnbulleh, who in Westminster, we know very well who she is, a very close ally of Andy Burnham, who's been helping him shape his policy behind the scenes. She will now be Energy Secretary. We have a couple of new roles who are now in Cabinet. I'm thinking one AI Minister. That will now sit in Cabinet, that role. Lisa Nandy is staying as Culture Secretary, but now in her brief is also digital. So think online safety, for example. She will now be responsible for seeing through that ban on social media for under 16s. I think one important thing to note with this Cabinet is that Downing Street here is really seen, you know, it's like the centre of power where a lot of those massive decisions are made. Well, Andy Burnham has made it very clear that he wants to shift power out of Westminster. One of his biggest and first announcements was Number 10 North, a Manchester-based centre for many in the civil service to make a lot of those big decisions. So while this is a physical meeting place for many of his cabinet, I think Andy Burnham will be very clear to show throughout his premiership that a lot of the big decisions are actually made out of Westminster. I expect, you know, at the top of that cabinet meeting today, Andy Burnham will, of course, talk a lot about what he did yesterday, really. His big policy focuses, one of them being to end rough sleeping, but pointing to that first official announcement this morning on cutting VAT from energy bills. Already, though, unhelpfully for Andy Burnham, we are discussing how that will be funded. In the press release that came out at 6 o'clock this morning, they stressed that it was fully funded. Cutting VAT from 5% to 0% is expected to cost about £850 million a year. Well, actually, Darren Jones, as you were just saying, Sophie and Wilf, former Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, a real Keir Starmer loyalist, the man who was overseeing this digital ID programme. Well, Andy Burnham is scrapping that, saying that actually the money that was going to go towards that is now going to fund this cut on energy bills. Darren Jones is saying that it wasn't funded at all. So Andy Burnham is going to have to find the money from somewhere. It's deeply unhelpful for a government, particularly Andy Burnham, who has had to come in and reassure people that he is economically responsible, that everything he announces will be fully costed. This conversation around this announcement now is deeply unhelpful. It's also, I think, problematic that within just a few hours of Andy Burnham's first full day as Prime Minister, you've got somebody very senior in the Labour Party already publicly kind of having a bit of a dig, really, at something that he's announcing. You know, Andy Burnham has come in saying he's going to unite the Labour Party. This doesn't really give that image, does it? So some unhelpful conversation around this big policy announcement this morning.
Lucy, great stuff. Just going to quickly mention bond yields this morning, which are steady.
Just explain bond yields, what are they?
UK government borrowing costs, so rose quite a lot yesterday, just on uncertainty about who'd be the Chancellor. The market closed. John Healey was appointed late in the day. Might they have therefore eased a bit today? Well, they haven't. They're kind of stable. So it's no better, no worse. But the key point being that the 10-year borrowing cost for the UK government is above 5% again, down to a lot of factors over the last few weeks, including issues in the US and the Middle East. But it's another headache for John Healey. Borrowing costs are higher than they were a few weeks ago.
Now, we just wanted to bring in updates on the death of Anna Widdecombe. So a 28-year-old man has been charged with the murder of the former Conservative minister and Reform UK spokesperson whose body was found at her home nearly a fortnight ago.
Joshua Kerry from Rotherham is due to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court today. Barnaby is there for us. Barnaby, what can we expect?
Good morning. Well, this will just be a first hearing for Joshua Kerry, who, as you say, has been charged with the murder of Anne Widdecombe. He can be expected to confirm his name and confirm his age, but given the severity of the charge that he faces, a charge of murder, that won't be dealt with here. The magistrate will forward that case on to the Crown Court. It's possible today that a date might be set for that first hearing. We'll just have to wait and see. He was, of course, arrested on the 11th of July. He was charged with murder. He was then arrested again 2 days later on suspicion of terror offences. No charges were brought, but counter-terror police do continue to investigate. They said yesterday they'd received over 800 lines of inquiry, all of which will have to be looked at and assessed properly. And whilst all that's going on, political tributes continue to be paid to Anne Widdecombe, somebody who first became an MP for the Conservative Party all the way back in 1987. She served as a minister in the governments of John Major. She later left the Tory party and joined the Brexit Party, where she served as a member of the European Parliament, and latterly she was a spokesperson for Reform UK. So a decades-long career in British politics, and she was also somebody with a significant media profile. She appeared in Strictly Come Dancing. She appeared as a panellist on many TV and radio shows over the years, and her death has sparked a renewal of the conversation around MPs' safety. We know that counter-terror police have been speaking with parliamentary officials on the security procedures in place to protect MPs, and the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, has said there should be an inquiry into MPs' safety too. So that conversation will continue, I think, over the coming weeks, the coming months, and Joshua Kerry can be expected to appear here at Westminster Magistrates at some point over the next couple of hours.
Barnaby, thanks so much. Now, the boss of America's largest bank says it's crucial the UK gets its tax system right under the new Prime Minister to strengthen the economy and lift living standards across the country. I sat down with the chairman and CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, and asked what he's hoping for from Prime Minister Andy Burnham.
I want him to succeed. I want to see the UK thrive. I want London to succeed. I'd like London to be our home for a long period of time. It's been a wonderful home for us. But the UK, like everybody else, and like my own country, so, don't yell at me and tell me I'm an angry American. If we don't do the right things, around immigration and taxation and regulation and healthcare and affordability is not a Democrat or Republican issue, or taking care of our lower paid citizens. You need a strong economy to do that. A strong economy will benefit all of your citizens. And just travel around the world and look what happens when bad policies muck up a country. So, the new chancellor is going to be good policies that actually cause growth. And good policies are free, and growth is the best antidote. Growth also helps the lowest paid people the most. Sometimes you look like you're doing a policy that's in benefit of a big company or wealthy people, but it's growth which will drive it for everybody. And it also creates the wealth of the nation that they can use to fix schools and roads and hospitals and all of that. So, I'm praying that they get policy right.
One tax that's talked about a lot is the banks levy. It's a 3% extra corporate tax that other sectors don't have to pay.
There's two different taxes we have there extra, yes.
And it used to be 8%. Rishi Sunak brought it down to 3%. What if that went back up again?
It would be one more negative on that bucket of things you got to think about. I always thought it was wrong. JP Morgan did not damage the UK, and I called the chancellor at the time. Did not damage the UK. We're a great citizen there. We hire people there. We want to be bigger there. We train people there. We hire veterans there. We have programs for people. We have medical. All of our people get medical and all that stuff like that. And I just thought it lacked principle to punish a company. It had nothing to do with the crisis.
The new Canary Wharf building you announced the day after Rachel Reeves' last budget, when she didn't put that up, would you U-turn on that building?
Well, that's a binary decision. I don't know what I do. I wouldn't make a binary decision like that. I thought Rachel did a great job, by the way. I want London to be our happy home for a long time. I would be very cautious if I was a government thinking that penalizing any company, out of the ordinary is a good thing for that country.
Well, let's talk about what Jamie Dimon had to say there, as well as the appointment of the new Chancellor. Delighted to say I'm joined now by Baroness Morrissey, the former Chief Executive of Newton Investment Management, the founder of the 30% Club. Helen, a very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You were CEO of a big financial firm of Newton at the time that the banks levy came in after the financial crisis. What is your view on it? What was your view on it at the time? Did you think it was wrong, as Jamie Dimon thought?
I think anything that puts the UK sort of out to kilter with other countries in a global environment is a challenge. I mean, he's just said it very clearly. You know, we live in a global world. Banks have got choices. Any company has got choices. So I think at the time I understood the political reasons for it, and obviously it was a Conservative government at the time. But I think doing that one-off, and obviously now there's still a bank levy where that pays into the insurance fund, basically, if any bank goes bust. So there's still an ongoing small contribution, just 0.1% of deposits. So everyone's paying into that, but putting on an extra tax would just put the UK at a disadvantage.
In terms of the sentiment that we feel at the moment from the new government, clearly there's a lot of reindustrialisation talk, there's a lot of devolution talk. Does the financial community, which is obviously not industrial and it's not outside London for the most part, are they worried by that sentiment, or can they understand it?
I think mostly worried by the idea of high tax, high spend. I think, clearly, we know that Andy Burnham, he's very much a Labour Prime Minister. He's proudly said that that's what he's going to be about, and so he's going to make this talk. By their deeds shall they know thee. And so I think we have to watch what he actually does. And I'd say that, I want him to succeed, like Jamie Dimon said. This country needs strong leadership, and I think some of the things he's actually started by doing, having a dedicated AI minister in the cabinet, saying he wants to do something about homelessness. All these things, people are going to say, well, that's reasonable. So let's just watch what he actually does. And I think he is going to talk this sort of, no one can believe we want to go back to the 70s, can they? Really? So I think he was giving people, what they needed to hear at the TUC, that sort of thing.
Well, that said, if you do see some nationalisations, Thames Water is obviously a candidate that's being talked about, but it's not like Thames Water's thriving in the private sector. Again, does the business community shudder when they hear that talk, or can they understand it on case-by-case basis?
I think we have to all say, OK, when you take anything too far, any problem like free markets, I believe in free markets, but unfettered, you end up with moral hazard, you end up with Thames Water effectively going bust or having really financial difficulties. It's a utility. People need water, obviously. So I think we swung from everything being nationalised to everything being privatised without enough sort of controls around that. So people are going to be quite reasonable, I think, and think, we just don't want to say, oh, just because it's in the public sector, now it will be perfect, because it's not going to be. It's who's running it, how are they running it, what are the finances, what are the regulations around it. So I think every time you'd hope that you'd swing, instead of from one extreme to another, there would be a thoughtful, what can we learn from what went wrong? What can we do to make it better if we go back into national hands?
And what do you think the city, the markets think to the appointment of John Healey?
So I think, as you were saying earlier, pretty inspired, because he's seen as a pragmatist. He's seen as, a sort of bit of an elder statesman. He's obviously, now they're going to watch what he's going to do on defence spending, clearly, or how he's going to carve out the money for that. And it obviously was completely unexpected. All those predictions market went from 0% likelihood to 100%, when the announcement was made. And it does seem to appease, this factionalism. He doesn't seem to be particularly a sort of factionalist, or he seems to have supporters everywhere. But, again, it's what is he going to do? It's not just... There's not much in his history to be really clear about what his taxation policies are going to be. The key is we have to control spending in this country. Whatever we do on taxes, I already think we've got to the extreme on the Laffer curve, where people are likely to actually receive less revenue if they raise taxes anymore. So we've got to control spending. And people are just going to watch and see what he actually does.
Another section of the interview I did with Jamie Dimon was talking about borrowing costs. This was a sort of US and global point, not necessarily UK specific, but he's very worried about the direction of travel of borrowing costs. Clearly here, if we look at the 10-year, it's risen back above 5% of late, again, because of a lot of international factors. Is that a concern for you as well?
That is the big one. So our rates are 5% at 10 years, as you said. In Italy, just as an example, 4%. Germany, just over 3%. So we're already paying a risk premium, a higher rate of borrowing, because we're not such a great credit. Andy Burnham said last year, the government must not be in hock to the bond markets. And I think there is this sense that the bond markets are just sort of evil, miserable people that are trying to sort of do everyone down. Whereas actually what we're trying to do is hold everyone...
You started your career as a bond trader,
I started my career as a bond manager,
with
yes. Well, I think it's trying to hold the government to account. It would be like me saying, with a huge mortgage and a big overdraft, I'm not going to be in hock to the bank, they're not the boss of me. Well, they are the boss of you if you've got a poor credit or you're running out of money. So that is going to be absolutely key to the next few months of Britain getting back on track, this circuit breaker that Andy Burnham's talked about. Can we actually restore confidence that over the medium term, our finances will start to improve?
And what does the market, the bond investors, think when you hear this idea that, you know, I think a lot of people want to see defence spending going up of certain cohorts, but we're talking big numbers. Can you isolate borrowing used for defence in a way that the bond markets will take in their stride, or is all borrowing still counted in the same way?
I think it's going to be very difficult. Remember, we spend £110 billion on just servicing the national debt, and almost twice what we spend on defence at present. So we just are spending so much money on our interest costs that the slightest doubt in people's minds is just going to tip us over the edge. Remember, the other man with the surname Healy had to go to the IMF before. That's the only thing against John Healy. I quickly Googled, was he related? And clearly not. But clearly, we have to get that confidence back. You can't carve out... I know Jim O'Neill, I understand, has been going around the city, advisor to Andy Burnham, saying, we need to borrow more, we should let the government be bolder, spend more. Well, you can only do that if you've got the confidence that you can pay that money back at some point. And that's what needs to be focused on in the here and now.
And just finally, Helena, what do you make of the overall balance in the cabinet? Clearly...
50-50 men and women.
Is it over exactly 50?
Yeah, well, in fact, I read that it was 50-50. I haven't actually checked and whether maybe not quite all the positions are equal, but, I mean, that matters less to me than it's the right people, obviously, but it is... it does seem he has got people from all sides of the party. Obviously, they haven't had their first cabinet meeting yet, and I hope that they do manage to focus on the policies, not on infighting. But let's see. Let's see,
indeed. Helena Morrissey, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Baroness Morrissey there.
Lots more to come. We've got the cabinet meeting coming up, of course, as we were just saying. We'll also be talking to the leader of the Lib Dems, Ed Davey, as he pushes the new PM to address social care, something, of course, Andy Burnham's been talking about too.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped?
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back. Well, during his first speech as Prime Minister in number 10, Andy Burnham said he planned to end rough sleeping.
It is a target that he's made before. He said exactly the same thing when he became Mayor of Greater Manchester, and it didn't work. Now, there's two ways of looking at this. Some people say that it is a failure of a policy that he promised. Others say that it has to be a national picture, because if you say that you're going to end rough sleeping in Manchester, what you get is a lot of people coming to Manchester because they know that they'll be looked after. So it's a complex issue, as Tom Parmenter reports.
It's tough. So you're trying to basically just keep yourself alive, basically. Realised over the last 6 weeks how hard it is.
Until recently, Ben had a home and a job. Now his whole life is in his backpack, and he's constantly looking for somewhere safe to sleep.
My bag is wrapped around my hand every night, just to make sure nobody can take it, because that bag's got basically my life in it. It's got my sleeping bag, change of clothes, bits of food.
This homeless charity kitchen helps keep him and many others going.
If there was one thing that you could say to the Prime Minister about sorting this out, what would it be?
Just do whatever you can to get, because a lot of these people that are on the streets could then be contributing to society.
Luke has had 10 years without a proper home.
I've pretty much lost my life because of that, not having a stable home.
Do you think any Prime Minister can solve rough sleeping?
No. No.
Helen has been there too, but told us Andy Burnham's approach could make a difference.
Anyone can be there. There's plenty of people that are just 1 or 2 steps away from that place, and it's looking at everybody as an individual and, you know, restoring their dignity and helping them to live the life that they really want to live.
When he was elected mayor here back in 2017, Andy Burnham promised to end rough sleeping in Greater Manchester. He even donated 15% of his wages to help solve it. But after some progress, the numbers have crept back up.
You don't have to go far to find it. Near Piccadilly Station, we met Liam.
When you hear that he wants to try and improve it nationally, you're not buying into it?
No, because they just look after themselves. At the end of the day, we're out here, nothing. You know what I mean? There's how many hotels? Whole streets covered in hotels. Just not an immigrant, not come on a boat. I'm sorry to say it like that, but it is. I'm a UK citizen and I should have my own gaff.
The team at the homeless charity kitchen, which the PM has spent time at, believe it is a genuine commitment.
He will do whatever it takes to get people on local level what they need to strive and to thrive in their communities. We're always going to have people sleeping on the streets, but I think the length that people are there can be reduced. I think one night is the maximum anyone should ever be anywhere on the streets.
It's Andy Burnham's first big policy pledge, but the persistence of this problem here in his own backyard shows how hard it is to crack. Tom Parmenter, Sky News, Manchester.
So Andy Burnham has already made a number of pledges, including that one to tackle homelessness. But political leaders are also saying he needs to address the social care crisis, including the Lib Dem leader, Sir Ed Davey, who joins us now. Great to have you with us.
Good to be here.
Let's start off on social care, shall we? Because look, we've heard this so many times before from so many people. Do you think Andy Burnham might be different?
I really, really hope so. Because if we're going to sort out NHS, we have to sort out social care. He says he wants to do it. I've actually written to him and said, this is good news, but you need to do it cross-party. You know, he's talked about a new style of politics. That's what we want to. And that has to involve all parties in something like social care. I think the reason why it's not been fixed before now is because People haven't got to the table, sorted out the issues. We've got loads of ideas. I've been a carer most of my life, and I want to bring some of those ideas to the table. So I hope he delivers on that promise.
Do you think that the fact that you have some people like yourself who have been a carer the whole of your life, like you say, not the whole, but a large part of your life, and Andy Burnham, who has written about his dad, right, who has Alzheimer's, who isn't aware that he's, you know, Prime Minister?
I know. I have to say I was really moved by that, and it must be hard because he probably wishes his dad could recognise it. I feel that about my parents. So I hear the human side of him, and I think it's a genuine commitment. But you can be genuine, but you've got to come up with ideas. As you know, I've written about this. I've got a lot of ideas. The key thing for me is that it's not just done by the state through social care workers. Important though that is, we need to engage with families, because families do most of the caring by a long country mile. People looking after their loved ones, whether they're elderly, like dementia, or whether they've got disabilities. And I've always thought if you give them a little bit of extra help, it's the best way of delivering that care. Care at home is critical. And, you know, if we did, you'd see far fewer people going to hospital, people being able to be discharged from hospital back to the homes far more quickly, and that would help the NHS take the pressure off that. But you only do that if you support family carers. And that's, if I'm around the table, if you were Andy Burnham, that's exactly what I'd be saying to him now.
You know, when you talk about you need a cross-party solution, what does that actually mean? Does that just mean having a few meetings with people, or does that mean like a kind of finding a structure, a working group, if you like, to come up with solutions?
I think if we're going to seriously, it's got to be a proper group. And it's got to look at both sides of the equation. You know, how's it going to look? How's it going to structure? What timetable? Where's the money going to come from? It's a big piece of work. However, and this is key, there's been 25 or plus or minus reviews, commissions, select committee inquiries in the last 25 years. So we know this. We know the parameters of it. And famously, Andrew Dilnot did the Dilnot review, which set out the way to go forward. And it was actually legislated for in 2014, and then unfortunately the Conservatives reneged on that promise and it didn't happen. So we know the way forward. So I think the cross-party talks, they're essential, but they could go at pace.
You've obviously campaigned for electoral reform. Andy Burnham's about to become a new PM without an election. Do you think we need to change the rules so you have to call an election if you become Prime Minister?
No, I'll tell you why I'm not sure about that, because we have a parliamentary system. We don't elect a Prime Minister, we elect a political party. And if we went down the presidential route, I think that's quite a big change. However, he's got to deliver quickly. People are impatient for change. We're not calling for a general election now. We're ready for a general election whenever it comes. But I think people want to see change done. The economy in particular, if we're going to sort out the cost of living crisis.
So you're not calling for an election now?
No, but I reserve judgment to do that. I reserve my willingness to do that.
That's because you're not doing so well in the polls, isn't it? You're bumping along at, what, 5th place?
No. If you look at some of the polls, I'd be leader of the opposition under the current poll.
What poll's that?
The MRP polls, when they look at the share of the vote and they relate to the seats.
But what MRP poll do you mean?
Well, there's been quite a few over the last.
Well, there was one yesterday, right? More in Common. You were in 4th place with 12% of the vote in that one.
No, I'm talking about seats. Right?
No, I know what an MRP poll is. That was an MRP poll.
Yeah, but it's where you get the vote share, the 12%, into seats.
So was that the poll?
I don't know what they did on that particular poll. All I can say is that there's been a lot of MRP polls over the last few months which have given us a lot of seats, actually increasing the number of seats. And 2 years ago, last election, we got our best result for 100 years. So I'm really confident that when the election comes, we will grow in the number of seats.
You reckon you can be leader of the opposition?
No, I don't know what will happen. I hope even more that we can be in government. I want to be in government, right? Because that's where you really make the changes on social care or the economy. However, what I'm saying to you is that at the moment, people are impatient for change. We've had a lot of political instability. Mr. Burnham is the 7th Prime Minister in 10 years. I mean, this is a disaster, right? It's a joke. But if he doesn't deliver the change and he doesn't have a change in politics, as he said he's going to do, which we welcome. If he doesn't do that, then the case for general election is really, really strong. Yeah,
he's called for a circuit breaker. Today he's got this new policy about scrapping VAT on electricity bills. Is that something you welcome?
I don't think it's the best way to help people with the cost of living or energy bills, if I'm honest with you. I don't think it's very big, actually. We have our own ideas. We've talked about an essential energy guarantee. But what I'm worried about for this summer is we're going to have a lot of these little headline-grabbing policies without not clear costings. What we really need from the Prime Minister is a date for an early budget. He needs to set that in train, have a budget in early October, and then we can see the real Andy Burnham. Then, rather than a bit of a headline here and a little trail here and a press release here, we'll have to see the figures. We'll have to see the full package. So we really want to see that, want an early budget, and then we can properly scrutinise him. And if he fails, then it may be the case for a general election.
OK, thank you very much indeed, Ed Davey speaking to us there. Right, should we have a look now at the weather?
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
So temperatures will rise again over the next few days, reaching the high 20s in places. It will be largely dry into the weekend. Britain will be mainly dry with some long sunny spells this morning, but the far north will be rather dull and damp. Ireland and Northern Ireland will see some early cloud over central and western parts, becoming more extensive, although southern and southeastern areas will keep some sunshine. Expect a few drizzly outbreaks in the north, mainly over the hills. Most places look warmer, though, than yesterday. Ireland and Northern Ireland will then see some sunny spells developing widely later, but there will be little change elsewhere.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
We're going to take a break now. When we come back, we'll look at some of the economic challenges facing the new Chancellor, John Healey.
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Can you tell us who you're looking for?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal? Not like you said it.
From the UK?
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's rang out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcast.
It's like a football final with only one team on the pitch. This isn't just a call to vote, but a call to remember. The freedom fought for by the African National Congress.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa.
A cyclone and 2 burst dams wiped out hundreds of generational homes.
This was the second dam that the floodwaters hit before it tore into Derna. We are in the heart of Nairobi, and we're watching as protesters were heavily tear gassed.
The sheer fearlessness and persistence of these guys is astonishing.
We help you understand the world with us. I remember going into the iconic Omdurman market in the heart of Sudan's capital for the first time since the war started. And this is what's left of it. Bullet holes through buildings, shelled balconies, bullet cases on the floor. I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories and the lives of millions of people. This is insane. This was a bustling residential area. So many friends who lived here. My most memorable interview was with a 15-year-old boy who'd survived being stranded on a migrant boat on its way from Senegal to the Canary Islands.
After 13 days, our food, water and fuel supply ran out.
I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky News.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Right, we are going to be talking about the economy. It's one of those words where the economy, and you kind of think, oh, God, here we go, a load of charts and numbers. But actually, the economy matters, obviously, for everything. Absolutely
But
everything.
charts and numbers are good too.
They are very good too.
There's literally no negative here in my eyes.
Oh, well, here is our economist and data editor, Ed Conway.
We've got a new Chancellor, not the one that people had expected. It is this man, John Healey, former Defence Secretary, gets in to number 11. And he's going to be faced with all sorts of difficult decisions coming up. Perhaps the thing that will overshadow his tenancy is something that pretty much every previous Chancellor hasn't been able to deal with, which is that we've got really weak productivity in the UK. When I say productivity, that's just the amount of wealth that we're generating across the economy. It's perhaps this is the most important of all the charts, because what this is showing is productivity growth in different eras, cumulative productivity growth, going back to the 1760s. The higher the bar, the more rich we're getting, basically, over time. And that is the story of the last few years, decade and a bit. And we have basically, over that period, had the weakest growth in the amount of money we're generating per person, per hour we work, in over 2 centuries. It's incredibly depressing, to be honest with you. And what's doubly depressing about this is the UK, you know, we're kind of similar to Europe, but actually, if you compare us, and this line is basically showing you the same thing just over recent years, a little bit of growth. Compare us to the US, and just look at the divergence. So America has just been getting wealthier and wealthier and wealthier, and the UK has been lagging far behind. And people are kind of scratching their chins, and, you know, this will doubtless be part of the briefing that John Healey gets about what it could be. Is it the fact that America invests lots more money? This is just showing you research and development investment, tech, non-tech. America invests a lot. The UK invests comparatively little. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's the fact that we have some of the highest energy prices in the world, which makes it really hard to reindustrialise. Maybe it's the fact that our broadband speeds are lower than most other countries around the world. Put it all together, and it's an enormous challenge. And on top of that challenge is the fact that, well, John Healey was the Defence Secretary. He was really focused on this line, which is defence spending, OK? And he left when there was... Remember that Defence Investment Plan? That was the moment, the trigger for him leaving. He thought the line wasn't going high enough, fast enough. But here's the issue. Here's the challenge he's faced with, OK? If that line's going to get up to where he kind of wanted it to head, 3.5% of GDP kind of in the next decade, you are talking about, just going to kind of show you a line here, you're talking about £24 billion of extra spending per year, which is equivalent to 3.5p on the basic rate of income tax. So that is something the Treasury looked at and they were horrified about. And now that he's actually in charge of the Treasury, is he going to be aiming for that? Is it going to mean higher taxes? What does it mean for the rest of government? There are going to be so many questions which he is going to have to handle in the coming months. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens.
Ed Conway there for us. Let's talk about all of the possible possible tax choices, excuse me, for the new Chancellor. Joining us is Dan Needle, the founder of Tax Policy Associates Limited. Dan, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Morning.
Clearly, if we're talking about a boost of defence spending to that tune, if you wanted to fund it via taxes, you could only really pull one or two of the massive tax levers, right?
That is the nub of it, that the Labour Party in their manifesto and everything since have ruled out increasing income tax, VAT, national insurance, corporation tax. But those 4 taxes are about 3/4 of the tax take. Once you've ruled them out, it becomes quite hard to raise money, and you're left scrabbling around, making technical changes here and there, introducing funny new taxes, and just playing games at the margin. It gets harder and harder.
Do you think there is a case for some, like, serious tax reform? You know, the kind of stuff that might be politically a little bit difficult, but if you're looking like something like, you know, property tax, is that the kind of thing that we should be looking at?
Absolutely it is. If you are serious about growth, if you want to do anything you can to boost growth, you should be looking at things that hold back growth. One of those is the tax system. Pick a tax. We'll find an area ripe for reform. You mentioned property tax. Stamp duty is probably the worst tax we have. It's a tax on moving house. So, of course, people move house less, which is the opposite of what we want. It's bad for the economy. It also makes people unhappy. Shouldn't make people unhappy. Corporation tax, an over-complex mess. VAT, an over-complex mess. Income tax, stupid points at which people can pay tax of over 100% on their income. Now, reforming all of these taxes is quite hard, and there won't immediately be any votes in it. But if you're serious about growth, you've got to look at it.
It's interesting, though, Dan, that you say it's quite hard. And obviously, it's not easy, or else various governments would have done it already. But on the flip side, couldn't you argue that it should be easy? Because if it's a sort of free delivery of extra growth through reform without it necessarily being more tax to pay, just more sensible tax to pay, why hasn't it been addressed?
You're asking the wrong person. I'm a tax nerd. Of course I'm in favour of tax reform. For government, there's probably two reasons not to do it. One is that given a certain amount of time, you'd rather do some exciting, sexy project rather than talk about and work on tax. The other reason is that most tax reform doesn't just make people happy. There are going to be some losers. If you are reforming a tax, that's probably going to mean some people will pay less. They're not going to send you a Christmas card. Some people will say more, and they'll be out in the street waving angry placards. So you have to burn political capital to do tax reform, and that's a calculation governments haven't been wanting to make. But the result is that over the last 20, 30 years, we've built up layers and layers of cruft and nonsense in our tax system, and no one's ever cleaned it up.
Can I talk to you about devolution? Because obviously this is a huge thing for Andy Burnham, something that really defines him, if you like, as a Prime Minister. Do you think there could be room for devolution when it comes to taxes?
So devolved property tax, which is what we already have in Wales and Scotland, that's a pretty good idea. The reason is that property can't move. So if Scotland taxes property different from England, no one's going to pick up a house and move it to England. But if you tax companies or people differently in different parts of the country, they will move. They'll really move. Some of them will pretend to move just to get a tax benefit. And you will end up with an extremely inefficient outcome. All the little regions competing with each other, companies playing lots of games. I would steer well clear.
It's a really good way of illustrating it. Houses can't move. The other question that I wanted to ask you about, because it's been rumoured a lot in recent, I'd say the last year or so, not necessarily just specifically as we've changed government, but our wealth taxes. Do you think they're a sensible idea?
I do not. The wealth tax that people are asking for is a kind of tax that has never been introduced anywhere in the world, so it's a slightly mad experiment. They say it would raise 24 billion. I'm very sceptical of that. But even if they were right, if the Chancellor stood up tomorrow and said they were going to do it, best case, it would be 3 years before you get a single pound of revenue. Worst case, 5 years, maybe even more. So for a government that's not going to be in power in 3 years' time, at least not without another general election, doesn't seem like a very attractive option.
What about the stated players, things that there's more fresh data on this out last week about where tax is paid as things stand and how that's changed this century to date. What was your assessment of that data?
In terms of the different regions and how...
No, sorry, much more in terms of the sort of income bands.
Yes, so the UK's been conducting quite a unique experiment, which is that our tax has been going up over the last 5-10 years, but tax on the median voter, the median earner, has not. And that's not very widely believed. Lots of people will be shouting at their TV now saying, no, my tax has gone up. But no, your income tax for a median earner has not gone up in recent times. Tax on high earners has. And it's kind of weird that we had a Conservative government which moved tax from median earners to high earners, but that's what they did. And it means our tax system is now very dependent on high earners, more than most other countries. That's a slightly dangerous place to be.
Is there more headroom to push it further? I mean, I guess you don't know the answer to that until after you've tried it.
That's the dangerous thing, that nothing is easier than putting a little bit more tax on a small number of people who should be able to afford it, and if they complain, you don't need their votes. It's an easy thing to do. But I worry that you get to a point and it becomes unsustainable. Lots of people talk about billionaires leaving the UK. I'm relatively chill about that. I'm more worried about people earning £100,000 skipping off to Singapore, to Dubai, and there have been quite a lot of those. There isn't really good data on it, but I worry there's a limit to how much you can tax the sort of normal wealthy as opposed to the oligarch class.
Dan, it's so interesting, I have to say, to get your verdict on all of this stuff. Thank you so much for being on Warnings today.
Thank you.
Let's get you up to speed now on some non-political stories. And first up, a Russian warship shadowed by a Royal Navy vessel carried out a live-fire artillery exercise 40 nautical miles south of Plymouth on Monday. The Ministry of Defence said the Royal Navy monitored the exercise throughout and continues to track the vessel's activity closely and stands ready to protect UK national security.
Also to update you on the war in Iran, which has been escalating for some days now, and the US struck Iran for a 10th night in a row. They targeted military command centres. You can see the footage from the US on your screens now. They say it's to stop Iran attacking ships in the Strait of Hormuz, and it comes after a crew on board a ship in the Strait had to abandon their tanker when it was reportedly hit by a projectile.
President Trump has announced a 50% tariff on a range of Canadian goods in retaliation for what he calls unequal treatment of US products. The White House singled out cars, alcohol and dairy as some of the products to be hit with the tariff. Despite previous threats, the tariffs are not in response to the country's handling of its recent wildfires, according to a senior official.
Now that is Spain's World Cup team. So they got a hero's welcome, deservedly, in Madrid after they beat Argentina 1-0. 2 million people hit the streets, 2 million, to catch a glimpse of the trophy and the victorious squad.
2 million's an awful lot, but not to reminisce about the fact that we weren't there. If we won, I reckon it'd be more, wouldn't it?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I'll have to find out.
At least, you know, they had won the Euros 2 years prior and the World Cup about, what, 10 years away? 12 years ago. When was that one? With the old Xavi and Iniesta team. But anyway, congratulations to them.
I read a lovely...
They enjoyed that celebration.
I read a lovely story about Lamine Yamal, you know, the superstar, you know, Spanish player who played so well against Argentina. His name comes from a name of 2 people who helped his parents get out of debt when they, before his birth, when they couldn't afford the rent because they were so broke, and they named their son with those 2 names joining to make his name. Lovely story.
And I'm sure, not making a joke of it, he's made sure they're very far from debt now.
Yeah.
His little brother was the star of the celebrations, came onto the pitch as well. We're out of time. We'll be back with today's top stories.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
Good morning. It is 9 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
With Sophie and Wilf, a very good morning from me as well.
Andy Burnham announces his first policy to remove VAT from energy bills, but Starmer's former right-hand man claims the plans are unfunded.
The PM picks his top team, John Healey as Chancellor, Ed Miliband as Foreign Secretary. Wes Streeting surprisingly takes defence.
We're live in Downing Street on Andy Burnham's first full day in the job. We'll also be looking ahead to today's Cabinet meeting.
We'll bring you reaction throughout the programme, including from Reform's party spokesperson Lee Anderson.
Also today, a 28-year-old man will appear in court later, charged with the murder of former MP Anne Widdecombe.
A very good morning. Welcome to the programme. Well, Andy Burnham has made his first major policy decision to help tackle the cost of living, announcing that VAT will be removed from domestic energy bills from October.
So he says it's all part of his efforts to try and create breathing room for families. It's a phrase that he's used a couple of times, actually. So clearly his key illustration of cost of living pressures. But look, it was a really busy day yesterday. Went late into the night as he appointed his new cabinet. We had John Healey as Chancellor and Wes Streeting as Defence Secretary.
We're going to break down the cabinet for you in a moment. But first, let's look at the detail of that new energy bill announcement. Well, currently, households are charged 5% VAT on their electricity bills.
Andy Burnham says he's going to remove that tax from October. He says that will take off around £45 a year off the average bill.
The new government estimates this policy will cost around £850 million, but will be funded by the decision to scrap plans for a digital ID programme.
But that's a little bit controversial because although the OBR costed it, the digital ID programme, as £1.8 billion, others are saying that actually that wasn't taken into account by the government. The government have classed it previously as unfunded. This is Darren Jones, who was a former Treasury man, right-hand man to Keir Starmer. He tweeted this. Good news that VAT will be cut on electricity bills. It's a simple way for families to save a few quid and to mechanically help to keep inflation a little bit lower. But the digital ID programme was unfunded. The government will have to set out how it will pay for its new policies at the budget.
I count three little swipes in there from Darren Jones.
Go on then.
One, saying it's not funded, but also to say it's a nice way to save a few quid.
Yeah.
To mechanically lower inflation. Just, you know, morning after the night before, we know he went to the pub last night, which he deserves after a long-time government just waking up and firing off a few shots.
Yeah, and I think it illustrates perfectly the perils of choosing a top team because not everyone is going to be happy.
By the way, the word mechanically, which is, you know, most people would say is accurate if you want to say this will lower inflation, is exactly what Rachel Reeves and Ed Miliband and the prior government did, to the tune of about £250 for your energy bills, not 45. But it's quite amusing to see this morning, I think, that attempted swipe from Darren Jones.
What we have got from Andy Burnham, more than anything, is a narrative, a story. And I think for many Labour MPs, they felt that that's what Keir Starmer was lacking. Yesterday, on the steps of Downing Street, he told us what is going to define him as a leader.
We will make this moment a circuit breaker for Britain, bringing forward the biggest changes in the last 40 years. A new political model and a new economic model. In the 1980s, Britain took some wrong turns. Political power was centralised, economic power privatised, large parts of the country deindustrialised, and they still haven't recovered. Many feel as though they're still in decline, and they don't have the ability to turn things around. And that's why we will change politics, to make it more collaborative, more about problem solving than point scoring. And we will take power out of here and carry it into every postcode in the land so that they can do more. And in doing more, build a new economy.
Well, we also, earlier in the programme, spoke to the Business Secretary, the new Business Secretary, the returning Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, about some of those comments from Burnham.
let's be frank, Sophie, this is how a lot of people feel in the UK. It's not saying that other governments in that time have not done some good things. Of course they have. But this frame, this kind of overarching position for the British economy where people feel it's, you know, sometimes described as Portugal with Singapore at the bottom, but the sense of it's the southeast that booms and we redistribute that. That is strongly felt. People sometimes in London don't like to hear that, but that is the truth. And I think actually it's something all of the UK, it's not a north-south thing, all of the UK understands. And again, it comes down to, are the priorities, are the policies of the government ones which allow the economy in every part of the UK to flourish?
Honestly, do you think that Andy Burnham gets that more than Keir Starmer got it?
Look, I think Andy Burnham has always got that. I think it has been one of the reasons why, frankly, he's been a popular politician when other ones of us haven't been at the same time.
Right, big day, so we've got big screen, haven't we?
I love this screen.
And some big faces as well.
They are quite overbearing.
Starting off with this guy, Andy Burnham, new Prime Minister, and we're going to rattle through the Cabinet.
The big surprise yesterday, obviously, was who was Chancellor. And I do think it's interesting for a number of reasons. Should we just broaden out? Because the betting ahead of this was it was going to be either Shabana Mahmood, the centrist, or Ed Miliband from the soft left. And I guess the briefing, Sophie, in the week or two leading up was one of those two camps was going to be furious if the other one became Chancellor. And Burnham, you know, pulled it out of the bag. He seemed to appease pretty much everyone with this choice.
I'm going to be totally honest. I was getting, like, 0 from an unofficial from Team Burnham, right? But what we were getting was people who really didn't like Ed Miliband saying why he was going to be awful, and then people who really didn't like Shabana Mahmood coming out saying why she'd be awful. So I guess in some ways it does make sense to give it to someone like John Healey, who is harder to define in that way.
And also, we should mention John Healey, of course, played a massive role in the end of Keir Starmer's government in resigning as and when he did. A couple of points to note on that. He's rather brilliantly, stealthily swanned then back in to have the next best job than PM in becoming Chancellor, so kudos to him. But he also, of course, resigned saying not only that we need to get defence spending to 3% by the end of this Parliament, but with a clear plan to 3.5% after that. So he's got a tough job. If he's a man of principle and he resigned because of that not to get a better job, then he has to deliver on that, and that is not going to be easy.
By the way, our Cheat Sheet podcast producer has texted me saying that John Healey has managed to take basically the whole of the World Cup off perfectly without being in government, which, if that is part of the thinking here...
Well, you've got to applaud that.
Got to applaud
that. Yeah, John Healey's managed to take his time off watching all of that. And again, just to point out, obviously, Ed Miliband said some choice things about President Trump in the past. He's now our top diplomat. Shabana Mahmood, of course, keeps her role as Home Secretary. By all accounts, she wanted that. She got it, and she stays on the path of trying to deal with all sorts of problems, but in particular, immigration going forward. Then a big surprise here.
Yeah, Wes Streeting, who has come in as Defence Secretary. I think what is interesting about Wes Streeting is that this is a big job for someone who's not a natural ally of Andy Burnham. So I think he has been rewarded, actually, for not contesting the leadership race with him, but also I think that those around Burnham think that he's been pretty mature, actually, in the way that he's dealt with them since as well. So big job for Wes Streeting, tough brief, of course, not something that he's necessarily got much experience of, but the feeling around Andy Burnham's team was that Dan Jarvis perhaps left a little bit of a sting in the tail with that 4.7 billion unfunded in the defence that he didn't tell Andy Burnham.
But as we said with John Healey, I mean, if he steps up and funds defence, back-to-back, Wes Streeting is going to have two departments where he's had quite a lot of money to spend from two different chancellors. So in that sense, maybe quite lucky for Wes Streeting. Also, by the way, one of the very late announcements yesterday, so kudos to all of our colleagues and peers at other organisations staying up late in Downing Street, because it wasn't settled until pretty late yesterday. Yvette Cooper, one of the high-profile, of course, outgoing from one of the top jobs, but still getting a good job in Health Secretary. And
big job.
When you look at some of the names that have left altogether, from Lammy to, as we said earlier, of course, with... who am I trying to say?
Darren Jones.
Darren Jones.
Yeah.
Others have left altogether. Staying in a big job is probably a relative win.
Yeah, definitely. And look, health, this is one of the things that wins or loses elections. People care about it. It's a big job.
But also, just want to get onto Lou Haig, because this is, you know, it's not officially one of the top three roles, Chancellor, Foreign Secretary, Home Secretary, but she's going to be as influential as anybody in the Prime Minister's ears.
Yeah, there's no one closer to Andy Burnham than Lou Hay, so she holds an enormous amount of power. First Secretary of State, Chancellor of the Duchy in Lancaster, they're the kind of jobs where we're like, what does that actually mean? It means she kind of runs the Cabinet Office. She's the fixer. She is the heart, if you like, of the Andy Burnham administration. So it's a big, big job for a key ally who I think it's fair to say has ruffled some feathers among other Labour MPs, particularly Keir Starmer loyalists, when she said in a podcast that they've been working on getting Andy Burnham in for at least a year.
Yeah, so that didn't go down particularly well. But that, I guess, is now history, and everyone will be aiming to please, in large part, all of these people here, but Lou Hay in particular. And they'll all be gathering in Downing Street in the next few hours, where we find Lucy, because, of course, the first Cabinet meeting is, what, just a few hours away now?
Yeah, at 12:30 today, slightly later than usual. It is the first one, of course, of Andy Burnham's newly appointed cabinet. I doubt it's because he was still appointing them late last night, so they can have a bit of a lie-in. It's maybe more so because he's got other things to do this morning. Interestingly, actually, excuse me, his new chief whip, one Annalise Midgley, just walked into number 10 about 15 or so minutes ago. Now, it's her job, really, to organise MPs, be the eyes and ears on the ground. How are they feeling? And also, crucially, making sure that they vote in line with the government, that they support Andy Burnham's mission. Now, what's interesting about her role is that Andy Burnham has said that he's going to change that whipping operation. So maybe she's gone into number 10 to have that conversation this morning about how you change the culture within the Labour Party, because he has said that the Labour Party is factional, it's divided, and he wants everyone to unite behind him. We've seen that division play out already this morning, and we are not we're hours into Andy Burnham's first full day as Prime Minister, and that is through this announcement that he has made on the cost of living this morning. His first big policy announcement since coming into 10, saying that he will cut VAT on electricity bills, expected to take a little bit off household bills this year, although Martin Lewis, for example, saying this morning that I think it's unlikely people will feel a really tangible benefit, though that doesn't mean it's not welcome. However, the challenge, the issue with this already this morning is that Andy Burnham's government saying it is a fully funded announcement, that they are using the money that was set aside for this digital ID programme under Keir Starmer's government. Well, they've scrapped that, and they are saying that this money will instead go towards taking money off bills. Well, Darren Jones, as you, Sophy and Wilfred, have been saying this morning, has been saying that actually that digital ID programme wasn't fully funded. So he kind of has had a dig, saying, I look forward to seeing how the government is going to find the money for that. He has posted on X saying, good news that VAT will be cut on electricity bills. It's a simple way for families to save a few quid and to mechanically help to keep inflation that little bit lower. He goes on to say, though, but the digital ID programme was unfunded. The government will have to set out how it will pay for its new policies at the budget. So, I mean, at the very least, that's incredibly unhelpful for a new government that has tried to set the narrative this morning with this big cost of living announcement. Andy Burnham said on Downing Street yesterday, when he was taking the keys to number 10, that he wanted to give people more breathing space, relieve some of those cost of living pressures. Well, now, understandably, a lot of the conversation is around, firstly, how that announcement is going to be funded, and secondly, you know, what it means to have a very senior Labour MP coming out in public, choosing to have a dig at Andy Burnham. It's certainly got Labour MPs texting. A number of them have messaged me this morning commenting on it. Also, it's worth pointing out, you know, you were talking about Wes Streeting being appointed as Defence Secretary. Again, I know that a number of Labour MPs aren't happy about that decision. It is very difficult, if you're Andy Burnham, to please everybody, not only the public, voters at home, but also people within his own party. So I think, you know, maybe him and Annalise Midgley, Chief Whip, will be having that conversation over a cup of tea this morning. How do we rally people in the Labour Party behind Andy Burnham?
Lucy, great stuff. Thanks so much for that. And, of course, we'll be back out in Downing Street throughout the morning as those new cabinet members start gathering for the first of Burnham's cabinet meetings.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the, you know, the kind of atmosphere behind them. And look...
Well, the first day, it's all going to be with a smile on their face, isn't it?
Yeah, it will, it will. It was that...
Might not be in the weeks ahead.
Yeah, you want to be in the kind of pubs around Westminster where the sort of Down Joneses of this world are going to be to get the real drama, I think. Let's get a bit more, shall we, on those cabinet appointments. It wasn't a surprise to see Wes Streeting walking up Downing Street, but he hadn't necessarily been named as a contender for defence, replacing Dan Jarvis, who'd only been in the role for a matter of weeks.
Let's bring in our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes. Deborah, lots to get your take on, including the new Chancellor, who you got to know quite well as Defence Secretary. But maybe we'll start with this reaction that I've just started to see come out over the last few hours from various former military chiefs who are disappointed that Wes Streeting's the Defence Secretary?
There's a mixed reaction. You've had Ben Wallace, the former Conservative Defence Secretary and former Security Minister, coming out and saying that this really shows that the Andy Burnham contempt for the Ministry of Defence by taking out Dan Jarvis, who was temporarily, you probably won't even remember, the Defence Secretary. He was there for such a short period of time after John Healey quit. He, of course, a former paratrooper, a former Security Minister, someone steeped in defence and security, and people thought was a safe pair of hands. And so surprised that you put in a minister like Wes Streeting, who has absolutely zero background when it comes to defence, security, foreign policy. However, I have to say that a number of people that I've been speaking to, including a former military chief, did say to me that with Wes Streeting, you've got personality, so defence isn't going to be forgotten as it has been with some quieter defence secretaries. You also have somebody who has experience of leading a big, complex department, such as obviously the health department, and as well someone who has driven through reforms. And these are all things that are massively needed in the Ministry of Defence. I had another former minister texting me this morning, making exactly that point, saying that Wes Streeting has seen through significant reforms in health, been willing to embrace innovative ideas. I mean, you can argue, obviously I'm not an expert on health, so you have to ask our health correspondent on whether or not that was successful. However, he was willing to make big change, like with the whole kind of NHS England being scrapped. There are people inside defence who would love a defence secretary that comes in and gets rid of this massive thing called DE&S, which is the whole department that deals with equipment. I mean, that would be a hugely radical move and very difficult to do, and it's been tried before in different iterations. So, yeah, unclear whether he'd be willing to do that sort of thing. And actually, he is stepping into a significant suite of reforms put in place by our new Chancellor. This defence reform programme, you've had a massive restructuring inside the MOD. But I think for me, from my perspective, having somebody without any experience in defence coming into a department in the middle of this huge flux, you've got a massive need to rearm, you've got war in Ukraine, war in the Middle East, attacks under the threshold of war here in the UK. It's a very live issue. He's not going to have any time to learn his beat. He's going to have to get cracking straight away. But as someone else said to me, he's a smart guy, he's ambitious. So, let's wait and see.
Just briefly as well, I've got to ask you about John Healey becoming Chancellor. I mean, in some ways, I was thinking about this. It's a kind of masterstroke because you're like, OK, you want more money for defence spending. You're going to have to work out what's going to be cut in order to get that then now.
Oh, absolutely. And also, if those rumours were true that initially Andy Burnham had basically offered a job swap to John Healey and Rachel Reeves to put Rachel Reeves in defence and John in the Treasury, I mean, that would have been an extraordinary move. But, obviously, if that had happened, she said no. However, you look back at John Healey's most recent posts when he was back on the back benches, he's made very clear that the #1 priority for the next spending review, which he is now going to be running effectively, has to be increasing defence spending to 3% of GDP from just over 2% now. And that's something that he says has to happen by 2030. And that means tens of billions of pounds extra for defence. It means a reprioritisation of defence back to the kind of level of spending that we last saw during the Cold War. And that absolutely has to mean a shift of money away from so-called peacetime priorities or a new big round of taxes or maybe additional borrowing. So if he is going to stick to that belief, and he is a man of integrity, as people often point out to me, so you assume he wouldn't have accepted the job if he wasn't going to be allowed to switch up the tap a bit more, then you should expect to see a massive shift in the way that defence is prioritised. But also, crucially, he's the guy that spent the last 2 years in the Ministry of Defence. He's looked under the rocks. He's seen how bad, in many cases, the MOD is when it comes to actually spending the tens of billions of pounds that it already does have in terms of its budget. I mean, the UK defence budget is the 6th largest in the world. And so he will be 100% demanding of the new Defence Secretary that the money is spent well, not wasted.
Just finally, Deborah, the story of a Russian ship practising firing its guns south of the Plymouth coast, is that as dramatic as it sounds?
I mean, it's pretty extraordinary. I was speaking to a defence source earlier who said to me that it is highly unusual for a Russian warship to have a test fire exercise off the UK coast. It was 40 nautical miles off the coast of Plymouth. And it was conducted within the rules of engagement. There was a Royal Navy patrol vessel that had been tracking this frigate, and they were informed that this live fire exercise would happen. But the timing, you have to think about the timing. Is it a coincidence that this live fire exercise happened on the very morning that we had this change at number 10 with Andy Burnham sworn in as Prime Minister? Did it just happen to be that that was the day they decided to do it? Or is it a none-too-subtle message from Vladimir Putin to our new Prime Minister that Russia is a threat? Who knows?
Deb, great stuff. Thanks so much at the Farnborough Air Show there with lots of defence executives gathering, and more from Deborah later today on Sky.
Now, a 28-year-old man has been charged with the murder of Anne Widdecombe. We'll bring you the details of that next.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Big Sky News journalist. Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party.
I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back. Now, we want to bring an update on the death of Anne Widdecombe. A 28-year-old man has been charged with the murder of the former Conservative minister, whose body was found at her home in Hayter, Devon, nearly a fortnight ago now.
Joshua Kerry from Rotherham is due to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court today. Here's our correspondent Barnaby, who's at the court and has this update.
Good morning. Well, this will just be a first hearing for Joshua Kerry, who, as you say, has been charged with the murder of Anne Widdecombe. He can be expected to confirm his name and confirm his age, but given the severity of the charge that he faces, a charge of murder, that won't be dealt with here. The magistrate will forward that case on to the Crown Court. It's possible today that a date might be set for that first hearing. We'll just have to wait and see. He was, of course, arrested on the 11th of July. He was charged with murder. He was then arrested again 2 days later on suspicion of terror offences. No charges were brought, but counter-terror police do continue to investigate. They said yesterday they'd received over 800 lines of inquiry, all of which will have to be looked at and assessed properly. And whilst all that's going on, political tributes continue to be paid to Anne Widdecombe, somebody who first became an MP for the Conservative Party all the way back in 1987. She served as a minister in the governments of John Major. She later left the Tory party and joined the Brexit Party, where she served as a member of the European Parliament, and latterly she was a spokesperson for Reform UK. So a decades-long career in British politics, and she was also somebody with a significant media profile. She appeared in Strictly Come Dancing. She appeared as a panellist on many TV and radio shows over the years, and her death has sparked a renewal of the conversation around MPs' safety. We know that counter-terror police have been speaking with parliamentary officials on the security procedures in place to protect MPs, and the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, has said there should be an inquiry into MPs' safety too. So that conversation will continue, I think, over the coming weeks, the coming months, and Joshua Kerry can be expected to appear here at Westminster Magistrates at some point over the next couple of hours.
Well, another big job, of course, is House Secretary, and that has gone to Yvette Cooper, the former Foreign Secretary. So what can we expect? We can talk now to our health correspondent, Ashish Joshi. How's it gone down with industry?
Well, we'll find out a little later today when she meets her team, but Yvette Cooper is at least a name, and she becomes now the 7th Health Secretary since Matt Hancock at the height of the pandemic. I can reel off all of these names, and I bet you won't even remember some of them. Matt Hancock, Sajid Javid, Steve Barclay, Therese Coffey, Steve Barclay again, Wes Streeting, James Murray, and then now Yvette Cooper. Like him or loathe him, Wes Streeting brought real urgency and energy to the Health Secretary's role. I don't think, and speaking to other journalists over the 2 years Wes Streeting was there, we were inundated with press releases and messages and keeping us up to date with all the reforms that he wanted to tackle to bring efficiencies to the NHS. Obviously, health is a really big portfolio. Yvette Cooper is experienced. She has she's a big name. She has presence, but does she have the personality? Will she have the strength to take on the unions? Because that really has probably defined Wes Streeting over the last 2 years. When he came in, the first thing he did was to try and address the doctors' disputes, the long-running junior doctors, resident doctors, as they are now, and he made real inroads with that. He negotiated with the unions, he got them to call off their strike action, and then he wanted to tackle the big thing, the big beast, the waiting lists, and he wanted to bring these waiting lists down. He was talking about faster diagnostics, more efficiencies within the NHS. He had a cancer plan. He brought in Lord Darzi to look at the NHS and say, what can we do? How do we fix this? He worked through successive winters, and now Yvette Cooper has all of that done for her already. So the NHS has been taken away, the NHS has been broken down, but she does have a senior leadership team handpicked by West Streeting in place with Sir Jim Mackey. So she's got a strong team around her. What she'll have to do now is to build strong relationships with the unions. The consultants are still talking about going out on strike. The junior strikes haven't gone, the junior doctor strikes haven't gone away completely. But the cancer plan is in place, the workforce, retention, recruitment, these are all really pressing issues. What might be difficult for Yvette Cooper is she comes in the summer. The summer is supposed to be a little quieter. But with these heat waves and extreme temperatures, the NHS has been almost working as hard as it would through the winter months when that sort of pressure is there. So they haven't had a break. The NHS normally, during the summer months, would start preparing for a busy winter season. Now summer is almost as busy as winter. So the NHS leadership team won't have that slack in the system where they look forward to and see how they can tackle the winter. So she comes in at a time when the NHS is under extreme pressure. But she is a big name, and she will have a strong leadership team around her, handpicked by West Streeting. A lot of the reforms have been put in place already. Like I said, with the cancer plan, the workforce plan is underway. We've had the maternity review. All of the big things that he wanted to tackle while he was in charge, he did. But he left with a breakdown in relations with the BMA and with the resident doctors. He couldn't resolve the last round of industrial action. But the interim, James Murray, he did manage to do that. So they've called off the strike action they had planned, but that doesn't mean that's gone away completely. But yes, Yvette Cooper certainly has her work cut out. She'll have to get the unions on board. She's got a good NHS team around her, but a lot of the work has been done for her, or at least put in motion. Now she's got to deliver on the work that West Streeting began but didn't finish.
Ashish, thanks so much for that.
We're going to take a quick break and see you in a few moments. Well, look, while Andy Burnham is trying to hit the ground running as Prime Minister, Reform UK have called for a general election after a change of Prime Minister. We can talk now to the Reform UK Party Chairman, MP for Ashfield, Lee Anderson. Great to have you on the programme. So when do you want to see a general election?
Well, this year sometime. I mean, if the new Prime Minister is saying he's going to deliver the biggest political change in this country for 40 years and then deliver a 10-year plan, then that's all well and good. If he wants to do that, he's the PM, that's his prerogative. Then, but the very least he should do is put that to the British public, because he wasn't elected on the Labour Party manifesto. And these new plans he's got, they weren't in the manifesto either. So I think the fair and reasonable thing to do is put it to the general public. And if he's right, if there are good plans, if it is a great vision, then the great British public will support it. That's fair.
I am very intrigued as to what you thought of the speech yesterday, because, look, I'm sure you have a lot of disagreements with Andy Burnham, but as, you know, someone who's a former coal miner, what do you think of his analysis of some problems in the UK? So he said in the 1980s, Britain took some wrong turns. Large parts of the country were deindustrialised. They still haven't recovered. Do you agree with him?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And my area is living proof of that. But you cannot re-industrial areas like mine, the Midlands, the North, you know, South Wales and Scotland. You can't re-industrialise those areas whilst we've got some of the most expensive energy prices in the world, whilst we refuse to frack. We refuse to get extra gas and oil out of the North Sea. We've failed, you know, we refuse to develop our own proper energy sources in this country. While we're doing that, we will never reindustrialise some of these great regions in our country.
But it feels like Andy Burnham might be shifting a bit on that, though, right? You know, on the North Sea and on energy prices as well, right? Would you welcome that? Would you work with him?
Well, we obviously we'll wait and see on that one. I don't believe it. There's lots of stuff we can do in this country, and bear in mind, this is not just a Labour government thing. This started under the Tories with the net zero madness. We had the chance to open a coal mine up in Cumbria with the Tories. You know, Boris dodged and dived over that one. And then Ed Miliband finally put a stop to that. We should be producing our own virgin steel, produced with great British coal, with British miners. We can do all this in this country and be a great manufacturing nation again. But for some reason, the people that work in that place where I attend most days have got something against us being an industrialised nation. They'd sooner farm it out and farm out our carbon footprint as well and be all nice and fluffy, but it doesn't work. It doesn't pay the bills for the people in Ashfield and around the country. They need good jobs. You know, we were brought up in these areas doing hard work but getting a decent day's pay. We want some of that back.
I mean, it sounds a lot like what Andy Burnham's saying, to be completely honest with you.
Well, it does sound a little bit like what Andy Burnham says, but Andy Burnham will not scrap this net zero nonsense. Absolutely not. He'll go, this new energy secretary we've got, she'll go faster and further, I believe, than what Ed Miliband did. And thank goodness he's gone, along with David Lammy. They've packed their cases and gone. Thank goodness for that. But I'll go back to my point. For us to be a great industrial nation, to make things, because we are good at making things in this country, we need good energy sources, and we haven't got that at the moment. We're kowtowing to other nations. We're importing our gas and oil. We're still importing coal into this country to make cement. It's unbelievable. We have this treasure under our feet.
Can I ask a question about your views on reform? Because, look, you know, your dad was a coal miner as well. Your mum worked in a clothing factory. You're quite unlike a lot of Reform UK politicians, you know, many of them from much more privileged backgrounds, from the South. Reform UK promised a lot to working class families like your own. Are you worried that they're now at risk of looking like the party of the super rich?
Absolutely not. We're not bothered. I mean, I go out with our politicians, all politicians in our party, on the knocking doors, canvassing. And people out there in the real world, this is what the media fail to realise, and the bubble in Westminster, the blob, they fail to realise that most working class people in these areas aren't bothered what school we went to. They're not bothered how much money you've got in the bank. They're not bothered what jobs you've done in the past. They just want you to be competent and deliver on the promises that you make every time there's a general election.
Look, I take on board a lot what you say about the media class, by the way. I just want to make that clear. But, you know, when I do try and get out, you know, which I do try and do whenever I can, basically, people talk about reform and they like a lot of what you do, right? And I get that you've spoken to these communities in a way that politicians haven't for a while. But I have picked up, I'll be honest, and I think the polling perhaps reflects this too, that there is a little bit of hesitation a bit more recently. Do you not accept that at all?
Well, there's hesitation with any parties. People don't trust politicians at the moment, Sophie. They go to the ballot box every 4 or 5 years, put the cross at the side of the party.
Yeah, but you were supposed to be different from that. That's kind of my point. They did trust you, and now they're lumping you in with the rest of them.
Let me finish, please. They go to the ballot box, they elect a government and a prime minister, and then they find out that the government and the politicians totally backtrack and deliver something completely different over the next 4 or 5 years. This is why trust in politicians is at a low. We can't be blamed for anything at the moment. I certainly can't be blamed for anything. And people are looking at us. And yeah, there might have been a slight change in the polls over the past few weeks, but that's not the Burnham bounce. We just got rid of Keir Starmer bounce. People are actually relieved that this clown who's been running our country has finally gone. And we'll see in the next few months when he does come up with his plans and the autumn statement, when people realise they're going to get up in the morning and pay a little bit more out of their hard-earned cash in taxes to increase the welfare budget and foreign aid and stuff like that. They'll be furious, the British public. And you know what? I'm quite proud of where we are as a party. When I joined just over 2.5 years ago, we got 12,000 members, just one MP, just a few councillors. Now we've got nearly 300,000 members. We've got 7 MPs now. We've got 2,500 councillors. We've got money in the bank. We've got a brilliant HQ, a brilliant infrastructure. So we're ready for the fight, and we want a general election, and we want it now.
Lee Anderson, good to have you on the programme. Lee Anderson there, the Reform UK party chairman.
Let's have a look at the weather.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Temperatures will rise again over the next few days, reaching the high 20s in places, and it'll be largely dry into the weekend. Britain will be mostly dry with long sunny spells this morning, but the far north will be rather dull and damp. Ireland and Northern Ireland, meanwhile, will see early cloud over central and western parts becoming more extensive, although southern and southeastern areas will keep some sunshine. Expect a few drizzly outbreaks in the north, mainly over the hills. Most places look warmer than yesterday.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
The suspect, the man who's been charged with the murder of Anne Widdecombe, has arrived at court today. This is the 28-year-old suspect arriving at court today.
Joshua Kerry, who, of course, came from Rotherham and has just arrived there at Westminster Magistrates Court. Of course, clearly we can't see him inside that van, and he will be appearing in the court during the course of this morning.
The inquest into Anne Widdecombe's killing also begins this morning. More than 800 lines of inquiry in the investigation, according to the counter-terror chief. But the man who's been charged with the murder of Anne Widdecombe arriving there at court.
We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be looking at some of the economic challenges facing the new Chancellor, John Healey.
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Can you tell us who you're looking for? Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal?
Not like you said it.
From the UK?
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's running out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about. Join us wherever you get your podcast.
It's like a football final with only one team on the pitch. This isn't just a call to vote, but a call to remember. The freedom fought for by the African National Congress. I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. A cyclone and 2 burst dams wiped out hundreds of generational homes. This was the second dam that the floodwaters hit before it tore into Derna. We are in the heart of Nairobi, and we're watching as protesters were heavily tear gassed.
The sheer fearlessness and persistence of these guys is astonishing.
We help you understand the world with us. I remember going into the iconic Omdurman market in the heart of Sudan's capital for the first time since the war started. And this is what's left of it. Bullet holes through buildings, shelled balconies, bullet cases on the floor. I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories and the lives of millions of people. This is insane. This was a bustling residential area. So many friends who lived here. My most memorable interview was with a 15-year-old boy who'd survived being stranded on a migrant boat on its way from Senegal to the Canary Islands.
After 13 days, our food, water and fuel supply ran out.
I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first. Yusra al-Bagher, Sky News.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
Welcome back. So one of the big surprises yesterday, of course, was the appointment of John Healey as Chancellor. Our data and economics editor, Ed Conway, has been unpacking some of the challenges he'll face.
We've got a new Chancellor, not the one that people had expected. It is this man, John Healey, former Defence Secretary, gets in to number 11. And he's going to be faced with all sorts of difficult decisions coming up. Perhaps the thing that will overshadow his tenancy is something that pretty much every previous Chancellor hasn't been able to deal with, which is that we've got really weak productivity in the UK. And when I say productivity, that's just the amount of wealth that we're generating across the economy. It's perhaps this is the most important of all the charts, because what this is showing is productivity growth in different eras, cumulative productivity growth going back to the 1760s. The higher the bar, the more rich we're getting, basically, over time. And that is the story of the last few years, decade and a bit. And we have basically, over that period, had the weakest growth in the amount of money we're generating per person, per hour we work, in over 2 centuries. It's incredibly depressing, to be honest with you. And what's doubly depressing about this is the UK, you know, we're kind of similar to Europe, but actually if you compare us, and this line is basically showing you the same thing just over recent years, a little bit of growth. Compare us to the US and just look at the divergence. So America has just been getting wealthier and wealthier and wealthier, and the UK has been lagging far behind. And people are kind of scratching their chins, and, you know, this will doubtless be part of the briefing that John Healey gets about what it could be. Is it the fact that America invests lots more money? This is just showing you research and development investment, tech, non-tech. America invests a lot. The UK invests comparatively little. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's the fact that we have some of the highest energy prices in the world, which makes it really hard to reindustrialise. Maybe it's the fact that our broadband speeds are lower than most other countries around the world. Put it all together, and it's an enormous challenge. And on top of that challenge is the fact that, well, John Healey was the Defence Secretary. He was really focused on this line, which is defence spending, OK? And he left when there was... Remember that Defence Investment Plan? That was the moment, the trigger for him leaving. He thought the line wasn't going high enough, fast enough. But here's the issue. Here's the challenge he's faced with, OK? If that line's going to get up to where he kind of wanted it to head, 3.5% of GDP kind of in the next decade, you are talking about, just going to kind of show you a line here, you're talking about £24 billion of extra spending per year, which is equivalent to 3.5p on the basic rate of income tax. So that is something the Treasury looked at and they were horrified about. And now that he's actually in charge of the Treasury, is he going to be aiming for that? Is it going to mean higher taxes? What does it mean for the rest of government? There are going to be so many questions which he is going to have to handle in the coming months. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens.
Well, Baroness Catherine MacLeod, former Special Advisor to Alistair Darling, joins us. Catherine, I'm not sure that introduction really does you justice. You're one of these people who's just been right at the heart of Westminster for so long, and at the heart of the kind of Labour project as well. You must have known Andy Burnham.
Well, I didn't. I'm not close to him, but I have known him for a long time. He was, when I went into the Treasury with Alistair Darling, he was there as Chief Secretary. He wasn't there for long before he got his own department. But in the years that I have known him, he's the same man today as he was then, more experienced, but always pleasant, always goes out of his way to be polite and kind.
I mean, people say he's a flip-flopper.
Well, I don't see why they're saying that. I think since I've known Andy Burnham, he's been saying the same things. He's always been wanted to talk about Labour values, about looking after everyone. I think what he said yesterday about getting the homeless off the street is probably at the heart of, very symptomatic of what he stands for. It's an indictment of all of us as we have to step over people lying on the pavement while we go back to our own comfortable houses. So I don't think he is a flip-flopper. I think he's probably a much more experienced politician now than he was 20 years ago, but that's good.
What about John Healey? What do you think about him as Chancellor?
I think it was an inspired appointment. John Healey has been around for a long time, very experienced politician. He knows the Treasury. He knows how to work with colleagues. He's got a very difficult job. He was in the TUC before he became an MP. So he hasn't changed either in the things that he believes. He's clever and he gets on well with people, John Healey, and he's well respected. And he's very decent, and I think that's great to see.
Andy Burnham has promised to end the kind of factionalism in Labour. And I think it's fair to say Alistair Darling, a man of great integrity himself, was sometimes at the sharp end of that factionalism, right? Do you wish him luck? Do you think he'll have any success?
Of course I wish him luck. I think it will be very hard to end factionalism. He isn't a medical worker. And it's the Labour Party. Yeah. But
good luck with that.
I think he will try his best. I mean, I don't know what happened behind the scenes over the Chancellorship, but I think he was genuinely very angry about the briefing, one against the other. And I think that by appointing John Healey, he has done something quite remarkable because he's taken the toxicity out of that job. John Healey said yesterday he was going to be in lockstep with the Prime Minister. I think that's what will happen.
We've already seen a little spat kind of break out with Darren Jones pointing to the fact that this announcement to cut VAT isn't as fully funded as it might have first appeared. Do you fear that as soon as John Healey or Andy Burnham have to make really big calls on spending or other areas, that there'll be more than just factionism, the revolts that essentially derailed the Starmer administration? Is that a significant risk?
Well, I think, first of all, that Darren Jones is pathetic, putting that tweet out today. What was he doing when he was in government? The second thing is that I think that there will be difficulties within the Labour Party, but I do think that Andy Burnham and John Healey have got the political reach to persuade people to take people with them. There will be some people, perhaps, that they won't persuade. One of the difficulties that faced Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves was that they didn't talk to the party, they didn't talk to the PLP enough, and they didn't take people with them when the winter fuel payment decision, which was a very bad one, people were surprised. They didn't see it coming. They didn't, they were having to go out and defend or expected to defend policies which they absolutely didn't agree with. So I think Andy Burnham and John Healey are better politicians and they won't make that mistake.
Pathetic. Pretty strong word. Do you think it's kind of sour grapes at not getting a job then?
Well, I don't know. I can't understand why. I thought he might have learned his lesson after, his relationship with Peter Mandelson, but being out today, the day of Andy Burnham's big day, second day in Number 10, I think it's rather strange.
In terms of the outlook for the economy as a whole, is it a mistake, given where the tax burden is already significantly elevated from when Alistair Darling was Chancellor, is it a mistake to think that it's easy to raise quite a lot more in tax, or is there always some levers that you can pull?
Well, it's never going to be easy. But if they're going to get more money, they've got to either raise tax, borrow more, or make big cuts. There's no money tree. So whatever challenges that lie ahead, there's going to be no easy answer.
Absolutely right. Really good to have you on the programme, as always. Catherine MacLeod speaking to us there on the first full day of Andy Burnham's premiership.
And it's the second full day of Spain being World Cup champions. And we can end with a little bit of their celebrations from yesterday in Madrid. Holding in, I presume that's their manager aloft there, Mr. De La Fuentes, was that his name? Forget exactly. But the 2 million people hit the streets of Madrid to celebrate well, congratulations to them. I hope they had a fantastic evening. Well-deserved champions.
It's absolutely, brilliant. It's what a team they were. I think there is an argument that they were perhaps the most complete team in the World Cup. They went through, not ruffling any feathers, just playing great football and deserve champions.
Yeah, absolutely. God, wow, look at that. Huge number of people. Lots more still to come in the day ahead on Sky News. And Gareth will be up next with Sky News today. Of course, building up to the first new cabinet meeting, which no doubt will be a positive mood, delightful mood, I'm sure. The question is how long that'll last in the weeks ahead.
I reckon Darren Jones' name might come up a couple of times. Do you reckon?
But he won't be there.
No,
that's
he won't.
For sure.
Exactly. Andy Burnham.
Pathetic was the word from Catherine MacLeod.
There's number 10. We are going to be outside that door all day, awaiting the arrival of the new cabinet. Don't go anywhere.